Melissa?
Yes, sir.
Evening.
How are you?
I'm fine. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our September 13th, 2022 Town council meeting. Thank you for attending, and those that are on Zoom, thank you for attending as well. I'm going to do a roll call for attendance. Albert Yance.
Present.
David Harwood.
Here.
Melissa Pickett.
Here.
Doug Matheson. Here. Pete Greeny.
Here.
Okay. All in attendance, if you would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Council, before we approve, let's see, go ahead and approve the minutes, August 9th, 2022. Albert. Approval of minutes.
Yay.
We need a motion, sir. Make a motion to approve those minutes.
Thank you.
Second.
Zach.
Yay.
Yay.
Yes.
Melissa.
Yes.
Doug. Yes. Pete.
Yes.
Okay, that minutes are approved. August 16th, 2022. Have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on that one? Albert.
Yay.
Dave.
Yes.
Melissa.
Yes.
Doug.
Yes.
And Pete.
Yes.
Okay. Moving along, on the regular agenda, council, we need to make an addition to this. I would like to move that we add the Oak Street water improvement bids from Iron Mountain, and we will put that under the regular agenda section. Do I have a motion to approve the
that'd be
amended? Second.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the amended agenda? Yes?
Yes.
Second?
So moved.
Any discussion? Okay, Albert? David?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Doug? Yes. And Pete?
Yes.
All right. Now we're under the consent agenda, council. Budget amendment, 2022-11. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Albert?
Yay.
David?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
And Pete?
Yes.
Okay, consent agenda is approved. Now, under the public comments, if you would like to speak, we allow you 3 minutes. Would anybody like to speak for those 3 minutes? Okay. Under the presentation, we've got a proclamation, end overdose, drug recovery, make that for the month of September. We would like to welcome Mary McKinney, Joy Matthews, and Eric Ellis. Which one of you would like to lead off? Thanks for coming, guys. And gals.
Good evening. My name is Joey Matthews. I'm a recovery peer support specialist for App Healthcare. My address is 1464 Laurel Fort Road, Vilas, North Carolina. What I do as a recovery peer support specialist, essentially I work directly with our substance misuse population, our homeless population, behavioral health. I'm going to keep this really brief. I just want to share some statistics. According to the CDC, last year the U.S. recorded more than 107,000 overdose deaths. 4,000 of those deaths came from North Carolina. 12 of those deaths last year came from Watauga County. Fentanyl poisoning is now the leading cause of death in people ages 18 to 45. So it's very sad. We live in a different era for people using drugs. It's not the 70s. It's the first time a teenager uses a drug now, they can die. And that happens all the time. And I'm sure most of you have children, and I'm sure it's terrifying that, you know, your kids go to college, they go to a party, they take a pill, they die. Fentanyl is in everything. If you use drugs, you're taking just a massive risk. What we do at App Healthcare, we do overdose reversal trainings. We train people how to use Narcan to reverse an overdose. We've been doing that for about 2 years. We train bars, restaurants, any business that has a public restroom. Most overdoses occur in a restroom. In the last 2 years, we've had 39 reported overdose reversals from naloxone directly handed out by our team. 39 lives. It's a sad thing, and awareness is so important because, spreading education and materials directly saves lives, and nobody can recover if they're dead. So we got to keep people alive. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good evening.
Hey, how are y'all?
Good.
I'm Eric. I'm the office manager at Club 12 in Boone, North Carolina. We are a charity that provides space, support, and literature for 12-step recovery groups. The reason I'm here is to speak very briefly about what I see. Working where I do, I get the privilege of seeing certain things, and I see people whose stories change. What I mean by that is that I see people who, if I were in a movie theater and I were watching their story, I would think, well, this is the tragic part of the movie. But I see people who choose recovery. And because of that, I see the story that's in front of me change into something that you would likely hear about in a TED Talk or on a chat show where it's an inspirational thing, where people who are going through really difficult times have their life change. So that's my favorite part of my job, and I agreed to speak here. Can't say I'm crazy about public speaking, but I was willing to do it because this is part of something to raise awareness and to help so that people see that there is hope and there is help. And that's pretty much, I think, all that I have. So I'll turn it over to our final speaker. Thank you so much.
Hey, great job.
Thank you all for hearing us tonight and for considering the important issues about overdose and recovery. Last month in Boone for Watauga County, on August the 31st, we hosted an End Overdose in Watauga County event. And part of that was during the day, we had the folks, Joey Matthews and other people that's their profession, that they do this overdose reversal training. 81 people were trained and given Narcan to take home. And so that represents potential of many lives saved, that hopefully we won't have numbers continuing to rise as they have been continuing to rise through those sorts of efforts. And as we help people to stay alive, that gives, as Joey was saying, the possibility of recovery. Saving lives and hopefully improving lives certainly is the point. And so we're glad for this opportunity to bring this before Blowing Rock, because if I asked hands to be raised in this room of who has yourself personally experienced issues related to substance use disorder, for you or somebody about whom you really care, probably 100% of the hands or close to 100% of the hands would come up. I won't ask you to do that because I know even though we've made a lot of progress about stigma, that still sure does exist. And so share as you want to with one another, of course, but just know that probably most of the hands would be raised. This is an issue that affects all of us. And if you don't know it affects you, you might want to take a look at if people can speak to you safely and kind of consider that. I'll offer that sort of as a maybe not so gentle encouragement. I also want to speak a little bit personally the numbers. Joey shared a bit of overdose statistics, and those are staggering and devastating all across our country and certainly here in our beloved high country. And we know that overall substance use disorder rates and impact are also staggering. I could take some time to share a lot of numbers about that, such as 10.2%, which is how many Americans aged 12 and older had alcohol use disorder in 2020. according to the National Center for Drug Abuse Statistics, or 21.4%, which is how many people 12 and older used illegal drugs or misused prescription drugs within the last year, according to drugabusestatistics.org. But what I want to do also is take a look at some of the numbers that affect us personally, and I'm going to share just a sliver of my own personal story towards that, because I have a strong belief that I know, as a psychotherapist, I didn't say that, I'm sorry, I'm Mary McKinney from Boone, and I work as a psychotherapist for about 30 years now. And in doing that work and in my own personal life, I know that stigma kills people. Plain and simple. It causes people to not seek help. It causes people to believe that there's no hope, that there are no resources, there are no options. And I know that sharing stories shatters stigma. So with just a little sliver of that, I will share a bit of numbers from my own life. My children are also engaged in shattering stigma, so I want you to know that as I speak of them, I do that with their explicit permission to do that. I raised 3 beautiful children, 2 biological daughters and 1 stepson whom I raised from his age of 11. My older daughter has been sober today for 155 consecutive days. My baby daughter has been sober today for 756 consecutive days. And 98 days ago, I sat with my 45-year-old son in the sacred thin space between this world and beyond as he took his last gasps of breath and died from alcoholic cirrhosis of the liver. His adult life was ravaged by addiction. His whole life was ravaged by trauma. I will quote my younger daughter's post as she remembered her brother when he passed. Recovery is for everyone, but not everyone gets it. Not everyone gets the resources, has the support for it, or even the awareness that they may need it. Thank you for considering this request for a Recovery Month proclamation to help raise their awareness that recovery is for everyone, every person, every family, and every community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McKinney, and I'm sorry for your loss. Council, I guess you all had a chance to look at the packet, and I hope that you all are in agreement that I will read this paragraph that's in here, proclaiming September as the Recovery Month. All in agreement with that? Okay, good. Charlie Sellers, Mayor, do hereby proclaim that this month of September 2022 is Recovery Month in Black Rock, North Carolina, and call upon our community to observe this month with compelling programs and events that support this year's observance, the 33rd anniversary of Recovery Month. So I do, as Mayor, do proclaim that as of tonight. And I want to thank you for your time, your hard work.
Might I say something I forgot to say very quickly?
Yes, ma'am.
As part of the programs, the Recovery Month, we will close with an event at Boone United Methodist Church led by MRJC and LEAD. That's this. Thank you. From, what's the time, 9 to 12, and registration is $15, but there are also scholarships if you know anybody that wants to attend it, but that might be prohibitive. And we will use words that are being left at the art installation in front of the Watauga Government Center about losses to overdose for a community poem that we will share. So I hope to see some of you there, and please do share this information widely. Thank you.
Councilmember Albert Jones has a question for you.
Well, I go in restrooms and see young people and old people that are drank too much, sometimes upchucking them. What would be the difference in somebody with this fentanyl, which is a bad actor? Is there a difference in how they're performing?
Any warning signs that?
Might I ask Joy to join me back, because I can speak to that a bit, but I think he's much more qualified to answer that in a far more complete way than me.
Let me make sure I'm understanding the question. So what is the difference an intoxication of fentanyl, an alcohol.
The person that's in the bathroom that's up chucking
Yeah, it'll look very,
drank too much.
well, typically with an overdose, if it's fentanyl or opiate, they'll be unresponsive. They won't be breathing. They'll be blue. You won't be able to, you'll shake them, there'll be no response. Sometimes alcohol overdose can look like that if they're unconscious, but there's no way of you knowing in that event. But if you give them Narcan, Narcan doesn't affect any other type of thing that's going on. If someone was having a heart attack and you thought they were overdosing and you gave them Narcan, it wouldn't interfere with the heart attack.
Well, our EMTs probably carry that, I would assume.
Yeah, most likely.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
They do.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you. All right, moving right along, the Middle Fork Greenway. I think this is the update E-flap grant.
Kevin's one here, sir.
Your name Wendy?
Not yet. Hold on a minute. We'll get to that.
Nice to say to Wendy.
Wendy with a haircut.
Thank you, Kevin.
Mayor Sellers and council, this request goes back to 2016. The town requested funding from the Eastern Federal Lands Access Program, E-flap, for the Middle Fork Greenway Phase 1. The request at that time was for approximately $2.4 million with a 20% matching fund of $280,000. Middle Fork Greenway is responsible for providing those matching funds. Those funds were approved in 2017, and then there was a slight increase in the project budget funding approved in 2019. In the past several years, a further design and evaluation of the original route, there have been some modifications required due to being unable to utilize the existing stream culverts for trail passage. If you recall, that was the idea to go into the parkway and the access road to the parkway under the culverts, the existing stream culverts. Well, that's not able to happen after further evaluation. And then the National Park Service also expressed concerns with some of the historical impacts of the project on the Blue Ridge Parkway. The Park Service also required a full-blown environmental assessment for the federal review of the project. We were thinking originally that would not be required, but that's opened up a larger project for evaluation. And due to the project timeline delays, additional design for trail route alternatives and increased project cost estimates and increase in project funds is being requested from E-flap. Additional funding of $2.3 million being requested for a total project cost of just over $4.6 million. The Middle Fork Greenway and Blue Ridge Conservancy is responsible for providing the 20% match if these additional funds are approved. I know many may ask this question. Anticipated project timeline to begin is spring of 2024. In your packet, there was a letter from the town to Cinda Russell requesting these additional funds. There's a summary from Withers Ravenel, who's the project engineer for the scope of services for the amendment to this project. Project estimate, alternatives route map, which was shared earlier tonight in the public hearing drop-by session. The resolution that was originally approved, and then a new resolution, 2022-14, for support for this application of additional funds. Wendy Patapursti with Middle Fork Greenways here to answer questions. She said she didn't want to do a presentation, so. And then also Ted Callum is here as well with Withers Ravenel to provide any additional insight to the project, because he's been digging it for at least the last 2 years as the lead project engineer. So if I can answer a question, I'd be glad to. Otherwise, two others.
Council?
Well, make it clear, this is not the town borrowing money. We're the facilitator of this loan.
That's right.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
We aren't borrowing any money.
Right.
Okay.
We have to be the agent to apply for the funds.
We've done this before.
We have. In fact, we also were approved for the sidewalk in Bass Lake. The timeline, 2014, and then just completed last year, so,
When Sue was here.
yes.
Can you give us an update on the expiration of the E-flap grant? Know that it's been extended and where that current status of that?
I can't, but you know the status, Wendy?
We have gotten another extension, and as far as I know, we are good for another 2 years. And that's the timeline for construction to begin in 2024. They've been really useful and helpful to work with us to get the extension, but we do realize that we have a lot of obstacles, so they've been helpful to allow extensions.
Yes, the way the grant operates is as long as we're moving forward and making progress, they're very supportive of, and they'll typically will have a problem extending those, the deadlines. So we're excited to be able to get some more funds and get this project finished.
Thank you.
Yes, Doug?
We're talking only section, Golden Rock section. Can you elaborate just a little more what jumped it? I know the 2.3 million.
Yeah.
That's a good jump.
Good evening. Ted Callum, Withers Ravenel, project manager for the project. And I've got a short presentation. I'll walk through it and then we'll get to your question. Basically wanted to lead off with letting everybody know the project team. It's a collaboration between Withers, Blue Ridge Conservancy, and also the town of Glen Rock. I know there's been many other people involved, but these are the ones that we've been dedicating time to. We have a monthly meeting, and so just wanted to recognize and let everybody know who all is involved. The project objective is to design, contract, and construct a 10-foot multi-use greenway from town of Glen Rock to the Appalachian Regional Healthcare System Foley Center. Seems to be the name that everybody knows. The greenway is to begin along US 321 and extend approximately 6,400 linear feet northward, and approximately 4,950 feet of that is across the country. So we do have alternatives that we're having to review, and we're working with the National Park Service. We're hoping to have some conclusions quickly. That's a different interpretation with some people, but hopefully quickly. It's going to have multiple footbridges, retaining walls, and they will be along the route in certain places. The footbridges, we're going to go across the ravines, large ditches that we have, and also to help out with some of the wetland impacts that we're having to encounter. We did have a public input meeting tonight. It went really well. We had a good attendance. Thankfully, it was in person, so that gave us a good hands-on feel to it. We had 50% plans laid out for the attendees to look at, so we have progressed that far. We do have the 4 alternatives. We reviewed those, had those on the wall for people to see how the routes are traveling across country and along 321. And then, of course, we got comments that we're going to go back and read, look at, and address, and put in our environmental assessment for the National Park Service review. The project timeline, which a lot of people have, been trying to track and keep up with. Of course, we had the public meeting tonight. The environmental assessment that we have to go and process through and have the National Park Service review and approve also. We're aiming for December 2022. 60% plans, we're hopefully going to move quickly. We do have a target of April 2023 on there, hopefully sooner. That's the target. Property acquisition, there are several properties that we do have to acquire. Wendy's been working with the property owners diligently, so we do have that targeted for June of next year. 100% plans, design plans of November, and then advertise for construction in February 2024 and begin construction March, April of 2024. So just to kind of give a timeline for people that have been anxiously awaiting. Like I said, a brief presentation. Get back to your question. We've got the retaining walls. A lot of the structures were not included in the original rough estimate. So a lot of the expenditures is extra design for the retaining walls, the footbridges. We did have culverts planned, which we can't proceed with because of National Park Service historic impact. So we do have a bridge that has to be designed. So structural is a main part of it. We do have the environmental assessment that was not part of the original agreement. So we've had to add that on and make sure we do the due diligence for the National Park Service's review. We do have to get approval for some permitting, wetland permitting and such that was not totally estimated in the original. So we've got that involved with that. Extra design because of 4 alternatives versus the 1 alternative. So we've got a little extra design in there because of having to do due diligence on 3 additional alternatives.
I thought we had most of the land acquisition. Was that just on alternative 1?
Excuse me?
Land acquisition, what's left? Are there parcels that need to be acquired?
Big one is get the final alignment for what the Park Service wants, and we'll be able to get the final land is just the 444 property right south of the water treatment facility. And we already have the easements to the Play Center, as we're just waiting for the Village Parkway to give us their final go-ahead. Hopefully by this December. And so, 444 is wonderful to work with. Kevin Troyer and his team have been super helpful in being patient with this project, as well as saying that they would allow everybody to go through their traffic light.
And as she said, once we get the final alignment nailed down, then they can know which properties to actually go and talk to and show the alignment. Even on the Foley Center, we may move just a little bit, so we want to get nailed down so she can show the property, impacted property owners exactly what is going to be acquired and or donated.
The markers along 321 now, that's going to be the walkway?
Yes, sir.
And what kind of barrier are you going to have between 321 and the walkway to protect people that are walking?
We're going to be looking at, since it's so close, due to what they call the recovery area, we're going to probably have a guardrail right there just back of the curb, and then the Greenway Trail on the backside of that, just along the 321 piece for the traffic.
Does the Department of Transportation have to have a say in that?
Yes, everything we do, we've got to get approved by NCDOT.
Thank you.
Ken, do you mind showing kind of the different alternatives here you've got? I know some of the council hasn't, yeah, that's right. Yeah, some of the council hasn't had a chance to see the different routes.
All right, this doesn't show that we normally have a legend over here, but it's, I guess, not showing, but starting up here toward Blowing Rock and coming along, I'll go backwards, alternative 4 is the one that actually follows the entire 321 corridor and then comes all the way down to the Foley Center access and then comes around across to the Foley Center. We do have alternative 3, which comes across, again, all alternatives start up here. It comes across country, follows the red, and then it follows the blue, crosses mid-block on the Blue Ridge Parkway, goes along, not of the Blue Ridge Parkway, but along, and then comes across country, ending up at the Foley Center access also, and then going across. Alternative 2 is the one that we've shown on the plans and recommended for 50% drawings, is starting up there also, comes down, it follows the red pattern, and then right here, where instead of crossing underneath the parkway, we do a bridge across the stream, and then come along the yellow, and then back into the Foley Center property. And then alternative 1, which was the original from the rough draft 2 years ago plus, is the red. And that was following what you see here, but instead of breaking toward the bridge, it was going to use an access tunnel underneath the parkway and underneath the parkway's access ramp, and then go as you see. We found out that the existing culverts we could not use, and then the National Park Service has shown strongly against putting in new tunnels underneath the parkway and also the access ramp. So that's why we kind of migrated toward alternative 2. It's pretty much the least impact of the National Park Service, but also gives you some cross-country scenery.
So you'd be going under the bridge span there, under the park.
Yes. Yeah, along 321.
You have room.
Yes. It appears that we do, along 321 in the places that we've chosen.
Do they control under the parkway? There's some question.
Talking with them, of course, they say yes. DOT has what they call a right-of-way maintenance area through there, corridor, but the parkway still owns the land. It's underneath that. So they ultimately still have a say of the land.
It's always been amazing to me because the road 321 was there a long time before the parkway.
Yeah, unless the DOT goes in and buys what they call control of access, then the property owner still maintains ownership of it.
We're still looking about going behind the water plant,
Yes.
because I know we got to do some work.
Yes, and those two projects, or the other projects separate from this, that is continuing on. So that's a separate project. So the stream restoration project is still ongoing. The funding has been secured there as well. So we'll see that project start, I think, this spring, if I'm not mistaken. And that's the red route, the alternate one route that goes behind the water plant would follow the stream.
And we are
Reservation.
And we are coordinating with that team also to make sure that coincide with alignments.
Any other questions, Council? Okay. Resolution number 2022-14, a resolution supporting an application for the additional funding from Eastern Federal Lands Access Program, EFLAP, for the town of Blowing Rock of the Middle Fork Greenway, Section 1, whereas the Federal Highway Administration, Eastern Federal Lands Highway Division has funding available for transportation facilities provide access to, are adjacent to, or are located within federal lands. And as whereas the town of Blowing Rock intends to apply for additional grant funding as an eligible local government to assist in the construction of the Section 1 of the Middle Fork Greenway project, being that the portion between the designated trailhead near Tanger Shops on the Parkway and the northern end of the Appalachian Regional Healthcare Services, further known as ARHS, Appalachian Place at Chestnut Ridge, post-acute care facility property, and whereas the Eastern Federal Lands Access Program may fund up to 80% of the anticipated additional construction cost of the approximately $2.3 million or $1.908,000. Whereas the Middle Fork Greenway Association, the Blue Ridge Conservancy, is committed to raising the $477,000 of non-federal dollars as matching funds needed to complete the project and satisfy the 80-20 funding requirement. And whereas the additional funds are needed due to changes in project scope, required federal environmental evaluation, assessment, consideration of project alternatives, and project material and construction cost increases. And whereas the 2014 comprehensive plan updated identifies the Middle Fork Greenway project as a pedestrian and bicycle transportation connection of high priority, and whereas the Middle Fork Greenway will provide residents, visitors a safe means to walk or bike from Blowing Rock to the mountains to the Sea Trail, the Blue Ridge Parkway, the ARHS post-acute care facility, and ultimately to Boone. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Blowing Rock Town Council hereby fully supports the town of Blowing Rock applying for Eastern Federal Lands Access Program funds to support the construction of the Section 1 of the Middle Fork Greenway, adopted this 13th day of September 2022. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Albert? David?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
And Pete?
Yes.
Okay, so this resolution is approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you for all your work.
I'll tell you, Wendy, whether it's now, you all have done a great job, but I'm really afraid that most of us up here on the council are end up coming down from that Foley Center in our wheelchairs.
I'm going to be y'all for a field trip.
Keep on reading like that, make a long.
All right, let's move right along here. I'm gonna let Alan do that next time. Okay, the Watauga EDC Boone Chamber, Mr. Charles Harden, and I guess would you like to introduce from there? See your sidekicks here. Jackson. Mr. Jackson, welcome.
So for those of you who don't know, this is David Jackson. He's my counterpart in Boone. He's president and CEO of the Boone Area Chamber. And we both have been privileged to serve on the Watauga EDC. I've been on the EDC for 17 years as the only Blowing Rock representative. I don't remember how many years ago that they actually made the chamber seats permanent seats on the EDC. But prior to that, we were just up every year for reappointment. But some things are changing. And so we met a while back. David and I have been on this EDC for a long time. And as such, we've seen some opportunities, shall we say, for some improvement. So the timing is right. Joe Furman, who is the county's planner, is getting ready to retire at the end of this year. And so Joe was tasked to be the economic developer for Watauga County, how many years ago? 19 years ago. Started out, would you just do this for a little while and let's see how it goes, and it turned into 19 years. But Joe's done a great job with the EDC as a part-time piece of his job. But David and I believe, as does Joe, that the county needs a more permanent solution going forward for economic development for the county. And as such, David's going to share with you a plan that we think we can transition to where we need to be. Dave?
Good evening. Thank you all for letting us present this to you and give you an update. I know I've shared some information that's in your packet that's a little bit more formal and formative about what led us to these steps. And a big part of that, as Charles mentioned, is Joe Furman. As Charles mentioned, Joe is in the process of closing out his tenure with Watauga County, and with that coincided with an opportunity for us to rethink how the EDC is structured and how ultimately the county is represented within that structure. So let me start first with this timeline that helps explain where we are and where we're going. Back in the spring of this past year, Charles, myself, Susan McCracken, who represented Appalachian State, another appointed seat on the EDC, and Joe all sat down to discuss what the succession plan would look like. Joe indicated at that time that he was done. That's my Joe imitation, just in case you were wondering. But he was starting to put some formality behind his retirement, and we all saw at the same time the need for there to be a full county-wide approach to economic development. There were some things that had been put in front of us that seemed to be very pointed toward specific areas of the county, specific municipalities, and we sought an opportunity to hear a more broad approach and coordinate a more broad approach to this work. So that's really where this conversation started. I believe we had lunch at Pepper's, and the whole thing sprouted from there. No pepper pun intended. From that point, we began to start to build some traction within the county staff first. We knew that for this idea to get off the ground, it had to be supported by county staff and ultimately the county commissioners who appoint the seats. So we quickly had a meeting with Darren Geock, explained to him what could be possible, and really went back to what had been in place before at that time. Many of you that have been around for a while will remember back in the late 80s, early 90s, the Boone Area Chamber served as the administrator of the economic development program in concert with the county. That relationship went away after a 5-year period for some things that, as Joe says, didn't really have anything to do with economic development. That was the point in time where Joe was told, hey, do this for 6 months and then we'll reevaluate. And I'm sorry, I misspoke. That's late 90s, early 2000s. Joe served in that 6-month appointment for 19 years, as Charles mentioned. So once we went to Darren and said, we're looking at maybe revisiting this model, but with a few caveats. We want to see all 5 municipalities in Watauga County represented with an appointed seat on the board, not just Charles or I, or happening to have somebody that is appointed to that representing, just having to live in the right spot. We wanted to see council-appointed members from all 5 municipalities. 2 currently exist. Larry Turnbow is the representative from the Watauga County Commissioners that is appointed to that board, and Tim Futrell has taken on the appointment from the town of Boone. Those 2 are the only municipalities in the county right now that have an appointment. There are reasons for that, historical reasons that go back a ways, and fortunately we have Joe to help tell that story to us. But with that said, it was very important for us, and when I say us, I mean the Boone Area Chamber. If we were going to take on the opportunity to be the administrator again, we were not interested in anything other than a 5 municipality full county alignment. That was important to our board, important to me, and really, quite honestly, that's the way that we intended to enter into the agreement, the only way we wanted to do that. So we mapped out that plan. That plan was unanimously approved by the county commissioners on August 16th at their meeting. And since then, we have been, and that we is myself, Charles, and Joe, have been meeting with the various municipalities. We've talked with a few of you already about kind of where this came from and where we hope that it leads us. We've had similar conversation in Beech Mountain with the town of Boone, and now we have an appointment later this week up at Seven Devils. Again, we want to make sure that people didn't just read in the paper what happened. They heard from us what led to this, what we hope to accomplish, and ultimately what we're hoping that the group can achieve together. The goal here is to have all of this organized and ready to go by January 1st of 2023. That coincides with Joe's retirement at the end of the year, and also does not wait until that action takes place. We can go into into the new year with a newly appointed EDC and an action plan in place. So at this point in time, as we go through this process, and I apologize, that one slide is a little bit dim there, but it was important to us as we talked at that lunch and as the current EDC exists, that the current economic development priorities as of now are mapped out as you see here. Outdoor economy, which we just heard a little bit about with the Middle Fork Greenway. Arts and culture, which is important to every last speck of dirt here in Watauga County. We all play in that game. Business and entrepreneurial support is something that the EDC has championed, and we can get into some of those specifics if you'd like to. And we also knew that with the housing conversation that's gone on in Watauga County, this body seems to stand to have a very good stake in that conversation. Already has. Joe has been involved in that process from the beginning. He was part of the Watauga Housing Trust that was recently just kind of put back into place and reorganized. So he's got some good history in that regard to help that effort. But we know that from a business community perspective, and again, full county look, we could provide some good insight into that process. So current tasks that we are going through. First off, to establish the organization that the county commissioners approved. And that's everything from getting legal documentation in place, the agreement with the county in the Boone Area Chamber, and how that will be facilitated. The next big step, and what we're coming to you tonight to talk about, is establishing the new look Watauga County EDC. Currently, there are 11 at-large members on that group. And we know that group will be encouraged to reapply if they would like to continue in the new look of the EDC. The county commissioners have seen our 5 municipality suggestion, plus the 2 chambers, plus Appalachian State being a group of 8 appointed seats, with 3 more at-large positions that we would like to seek and get organized prior to January 1st. So part of this will be to go and see who are going to make up those 8 seats. See what skill sets are a part of that, and then work with that to inform the commissioners on what we may be missing within that EDC. Is there a certain profession? Is there a certain area within the community that we would like to see represented and can help them determine what those 3 at-large positions will be? Ultimately, people will apply. They will appoint those seats. They are committed as terms of the contract to appoint positions for those 8 that I mentioned, the 5 municipalities, the 2 chambers, and App State. So that's part of this exercise here tonight, is to answer any questions you've got about the process and jumpstart the conversation about who might be best to represent Blowing Rock as a council-appointed position to that board. In the meantime, we're also working on space. The Boone Area Chamber, with the help of some colleagues here from Blowing Rock, are finalizing our new headquarters over on Greenway Road. We will have space. A part of our administrative contract is to provide overhead for this position. So we'll have an office for that position there. And we'll have the opportunity, once we get these positions appointed, to have some organizational meetings prior to January 1st, so we can all understand roles, responsibilities, and ultimately what we're doing starting on the 1st. In terms of those municipality meetings, they've all been very friendly. Questions that can be answered, and I'm happy to answer anything that you've got tonight. But again, the assurance that we want this to be a full county deal. This is not meant to be tilted toward one municipality. I know that our organization says Boone in it. We are going to be working on behalf of the entire county in this project. And that is important for us, because we know that for us to do anything substantive, we need the whole entire county to be a part of it. We need the region to be a part of it. And these conversations are conversations that Charles and I have daily. We feel like in this new sense, we can provide a little bit better synergy in that regard and help achieve an understanding that we're all in this together and mean what we say about it. And then the final thing here, project identification. One of the things that has come about in just getting out in the community and talking to folks are learning about opportunities that are available in Blowing Rock, in Beech Mountain. I'm sure we'll hear more about Seven Devils when we go up that way on Thursday. It's helpful for us to get out with a coalition and listen. And I don't know that that's been done as much over the last several years, because you're talking about one person who's got half of their time and no staff that's been asked to take this on. One thing that we'll do in taking on this administrative role is instantly give Joe a staff of people to help him with everything from social media to hosting events. But we can also have a dedicated person for just economic development, not economic development plus other duties as assigned by the county on a given time frame, which is what he's been dealing with for the last 19 years. So last thing I'll share with you here and open it up for any questions you may have. Joe, it may be the happiest picture of Joe Furman you've ever seen in your life. And our team will be there to support him. And I just want to illustrate that we've got a complement of professionals that are ready to pitch in on this. They've been a part of helping formulate that agreement with the county. So we know that we're not offering up services that we can't respond to. We want to make sure that we can get those checks cashed that we write, so to speak. So with that said, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and Charles can help with that too. But appreciate being able to share some details, not only in this PowerPoint, but with what we submitted in the packet, and hope you all will consider a representative to this group and to be a part of this process moving forward.
Essentially, the council needs to throw in some a nomination for this group. And then, of course, the council needs to vote. So that's,
I'll do that for questions.
no, go ahead. Go ahead with questions.
Who or how quick are you looking for somebody to replace Joe?
Joe is telling us that he is willing to give us 6 months at least, no more than 2 years. He wants to retire. And one of the designs behind this was to have the continuity to help us get the organization established, so we can have a mature organization when we go seek that full-time person. What we didn't want to have happen is have all of Joe's institutional memory go away with leaving the position. find a new person for a brand-new organization, have to go through the relationship building process with all of that, and ultimately be on the clock there about anything that we could get accomplished realistically during that time. So this will give us time, and it can give us longer time to identify who that new person is if we've got somebody that's willing to sit in the role. The Boone Area Chamber just did this really with the Boone Area Sports Commission, and we started that with Rochel Laney. Rochel had an established track record in the industry, and he helped us get through those initial years.
You spoil Joe too much with the staff and everything, he may stay with us.
I got a feeling that when that Middle Fork Greenway gets finished up, Joe Furman's going to live on that thing. We're happy to make that happen.
Council? Questions? Okay, who do you want to nominate?
Thanks for all your work so far, Charles, David. I think it's a wonderful thing and long overdue.
Thank you.
David didn't mention this, but we also down the road, we're going to look at other economic development organizations that are done by chambers, which have done very well. So one of them that we'd like to see is Raleigh. Now it's a huge city chamber. It's all different, but it's great to see their model and how it's working. We can bring on a lot of that.
Thing that Wake County afforded us was to see what a chamber's relationship looks like with municipal bodies that supply funding for staff, for operational costs, but then how the chamber worked to get private money invested into that as well. So our model will mimic that. We'll be able to, and have already gotten some commitments from businesses to help us fund essentially a working fund that we can use to our advantage, whether that means helping with the housing issues, purchasing a piece of land, the business grants. There are limitless possibilities there. But Wake County seems to have that balance. They've got a relationship with the county, with the town of Cary and city of Raleigh in that way. And they're able to keep all of those parties satisfied.
Now, when you say municipal funding, is that being funded through the county?
Yes, so this is all public. So the county's relationship with the Boone Chamber is a $100,000 annual payment. 60 of that is for an operating budget, which is Joe's operating budget now, and 40 of that will be toward staff, toward his salary. And then we will have to raise supplemental funding if we want to ever employ anybody for more than $40,000. So we'll be raising some supplemental money.
We're talking about, it's under county control, but each municipality will be.
It is not required that the municipalities put any money into it. We certainly won't turn that down. There are plenty of projects to go around. But it's not in any way to say, hey, if Blowing Rock decides that you don't want to invest any money into it, well, then we're taking your seat away. That's not the case. This is about 5 municipalities. They get that seat. And we'll all have those conversations together. But those that are in a position that may want to supply some funding, they're certainly there's going to be a mechanism for that to happen. The county is the first one in it because it's theirs, and they wanted to establish that first look at what a relationship looks like.
Well, I'm glad to see this happening. Needed to happen. It's long overdue, in my opinion. Coming from Catawba County, I know how they go after it. Mm-hmm. Do you have any plans, or do you have anybody on board now that's a recruiter?
That is a great question. And let me first say that it's not my plan. This is a collaborative plan. I'm the head of the Boone Area Chamber of Commerce, and we're going to be the administrator of that. But this EDC will be the one that gets to ultimately shape that message. And then we'll go execute that plan. So with that said, I want that to be clear that this is not the Boone Area Chamber's plan for Watauga County economic development. Now, with that said, I think from a recruiting standpoint, we have to take a time out and be honest with ourselves and ask if we can recruit anybody right now. Where are we going to put them? Who's going to work for them? These are questions that this organization can help with, I feel like, and I feel like Charles feels the same way, in a much different and stronger way than we currently are. I think it says something if an economic development agency gets out and speaks about job opportunities that are available in a county versus the business itself saying that. I speak to the hospital in that regard. Countless opportunities to engage in healthcare here. It means more if the Economic Development Office of the county says, we've got opportunity here, versus the hospital going out and trying to recruit that. The ask is different. So in terms of recruiting, that's going to be something that as we look at the skill set of that new person that will ultimately come into that role, that's going to have to be part of that. But right now, we've got to get our house in order first before we can look at a business in the eye and say, we can support you here, and be able to do that in good faith.
Go to it.
Thank you.
If everybody's doing like it, ask questions, I'll make a nomination. I'll nominate Pete.
Nominated Pete. Pete.
Oh, get in there. Do we have,
I'd second that.
Second that?
I'll second that.
Albert?
Do we need to ask Pete?
Quiet down here.
Sorry, Pete.
I'll be happy to do it.
well, you should know where Pete's from and what Pete did when he was there. He's from, tell us.
I was president of the Santa Barbara Chamber for 2 years, and that was a 1,200 member organization. And I spent a lot of time with economic development, so it's not something that I have to be trained on. I've already done it.
If anybody speaks the language, come on. If you speak chamber, need not apply.
If Pete wants to tell us that he's a little biased,
Yeah.
All in agreement?
That's a yes.
Yes.
how long did it take that movie star to build a hotel in Santa Barbara, California?
That was Fess Parker, and he spent 12 years in going through the permit process. And the chamber and Fess and all of us that were part of that team really spent a lot of time helping him do that, but 12 years.
Somebody calls Whitney back real quick, tell her she's still got some time.
It's bad that Daniel can't get in it.
Sounds like a Bass Lake.
Thank you all, and I do want to say, Charles has been an incredible partner in all of this, and we look forward to continuing the working relationship between Boone and Blowing Rocks Chambers. In this way, we know that between our two organizations and other organizations here in the community, we know that we can hear what we need to hear, and we encourage dialogue as we start this, and Charles has been very helpful in this process. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, Dave, Charles. Thanks.
All right. Let's see, water line break recap.
Good evening.
Shane Fox.
Good evening. A little late in doing this, so we were planning on doing this last month during the August meeting, but a couple of us had COVID during that time. Unfortunately, did not get a chance to quickly go through just the timeline of the events, but really publicly thank those that were involved in the process. So for those that may not know, I think everybody in the area does. On July the 18th, we had a water main break that ended up costing us over 3 million gallons of water. That process began, I think, around 3:30, and Mr. Blackburn's here. I think he was the first call or two, including the mayor, I think getting a call from his mom or sister, realized that we had a water issue that quickly spread throughout the town. Unlike anything that we had ever seen here, and we hope we never see again. So around 4 o'clock in the morning on the 18th, we, as in Mr. Blackburn, the mayor, and several of you already at that point, were well aware of a catastrophic failure somewhere. Unfortunately, we didn't know where. Shortly after 4, we realized that our 3 million gallon Green Hill water tank was essentially empty, along with our clear well. And so we quickly realized this was a massive issue that we were uncertain with the outcome. What I wanted to say today as we went through this is that by 5 a.m., we had a task force here that was put together, including all of you, that was quickly out and about searching. So from a public's perspective, these are your public servants that were truly out walking and driving, searching for what we expected to be a pretty easy find, which we found out later was not. And that's the picture that you see up there behind me, and why it was unable to be found until later in the day. But yeah, your town council here, for those that live in Blowing Rock and for those that don't, truly all jumped in and instantly were out searching for this leak by 5 or 5:30 in the morning that morning. Not sure. 6 o'clock, we instructed our staff to contact the local media, issued a boil advisory from that. As we go through this timeline, I'm sure I'm going to leave someone out from administrative staff that came in early that morning, administrative staff that got on social media, administrative staff that started calling the news media and contacted them of the fact that we knew we had a problem. Keep in mind, during this time, we still didn't know where the problem exists, other than the fact that we had a catastrophic issue. Around 7 o'clock, we contacted Watauga County and American Red Cross, who were here within an hour and set up shop at the American Legion for water distribution. We had council members at Walmart. We had council members at Food Line securing water as quickly as they could. We had council members willing to drive down the mountain and secure water. And so by, I think, 8:30, we were already handing out water. Over the next 4 days, we handed out 1,000 cases of water, give or take. Those are 24 count cases. A lot of water was handed out. But again, took the entire staff up to this point. Around that same time, we realized that our park and rec staff and our pool staff, which is in full swing this time of year on July 18th, could not report to work as called. We did not have the water service here. And so our park and rec staff started reassigning those individuals to do things like hand out water. Our landscaping staff took landscaping vehicles to pick up the water. We had just everyone's full support town-wide, almost instantly, anything that we asked for. And again, credit to everyone here for jumping in. Around 11:30, thank goodness, someone at Chitola reported the smell of chlorine at the guardhouse, which was something that was unusual, obviously. So our picture here behind, which is kind of hard to see, this is a bubbling fountain about 4 feet deep in the creek that leads just to the north of Chitola. That's not supposed to be there. So what we realized was that there was an old 8-inch water line, part of the Main Street Water and Sewer Project that you all have approved, had given way at some point during the day Sunday. As Sunday rolled into Sunday night into Monday, it really gave way completely, and about 3.5 million-ish gallons of water entered into the creek, into Chitola Lake, over the dam, into the New River. And so probably could not have picked a more perfect place in the town of Blowing Rock to conceal 3.5 million gallons of water just above a pond, above a dam, above the New River within that. So as that process unfolded, a plan was devised to repair it by creek diversion. That was quickly moved on to Plan B with 2 consecutive thunderstorms that dumped about 2 inches of rain. So this creek, that this is the picture before the 2 thunderstorms, rose about 3.5 or 4 feet in about 30 minutes. So diverting the creek was no longer an option. So we were able to go above the break and below the break and put in 2 new valves, essentially dead ending both sides of the break and abandoning this portion of the 8-inch line that lies about 4 feet below the creek bed. Again, this is part of the new Main Street Water and Sewer Project that will replace this line. So that's an option that was feasible at the time to abandon the line and dead end it. So around 8 o'clock that night, Public Works crews had the line completely repaired. So again, same day repair completed and water restoration then began. Again, we had never lost our water supply before, so we really didn't know how long it was going to take us to replenish the water supply. We knew we had the boil advisory, and we knew we would have the boil advisory in place until we were able to rebuild pressure. And so roughly by 8 a.m. Tuesday, the following day, we'll say 26 hours or so after the fact that we were, or 28 hours after we were notified of the leak, about 95% of the town had full water restoration. Boil advisory is still in place. Water restoration was still underway. About 5% of our town became airlocked, and that was a little bit slower of a process. But by later in the day on Tuesday, we had 100% water restoration to the full service of the town. Boil advisory did continue until Thursday. The process there is it takes the full 24 hours after pressure is regained to then send off test in order to get it all clear, which we did. Get it all clear around 2 o'clock on Thursday. Again, during this time, we were running 24/7 at the plant. So good news and bad news. We learned a lot during this process. We learned about our full system. We learned about how much, obviously, it takes to be able to produce the amount of water that we do running full staff. So we ran our water plant 24/7. During this time, we were able to produce about 1.2 million gallons during that time of water. And so it took us until Sunday to fully restore our water supply, given the fact that we had lost all of that. During that time, we did issue water restrictions. We asked folks to conserve, and they did. And so by Sunday night, 6 days after this began, we did have our water supply fully restocked. That's on top of a very busy weekend, on top of tourism season, on top of everyone operating as normal. So credits, again, to so many individuals. I wanted to put up a list here of just a number of folks that we wanted to publicly thank as a part of this. Of course, starting with, I would say, our typical thanks to our public works staff. Here, everyone from field ops, sanitation, to our plants, because everyone pitched in. We did not pick up trash on Monday. Everyone was out essentially walking our water lines, driving our water lines, looking for what we assumed was going to be a massive landslide or some type of a sinkhole, which we didn't obviously find until we found the water leak within that. So it took the entire public works crew a number of hours that morning. All of them pitched in. Everyone dropped what they were doing their normal day. Thank you to town council for everything from searching for the water leak to no avail, to securing water at Walmart and Food Line and Lowe's and driving down the mountain, to handing out water and participating and discussing options with local media and doing press releases. So thank you to you all for doing that. Town staff, our administrative staff, our park and rec staff, our landscaping staff, our summer camp staff. There's some pictures up here of the summer camp and park and rec staff, pool staff handing out water. They did this for 3.5 days versus doing their normal jobs. Pictures here of individuals, looking for the water leak or identifying the water leak. Thank you to our North Carolina Rural Water Representative, Keith Buff, who was instrumental for 2 days being up here and helping us through that process. Thank you to Johnny Lentz, former Public Works Director, who I think missed work that day to come in and help, along with Doug Matheson. I think the two of them sidekicks riding and advising as part of that process. And Iron Mountain Construction, who for a short period of time was called in for the creek diversion. And then, like I said, very quickly, we then went to Plan B after the creek rose quicker than what we anticipated. So just an opportunity from a town of Blowing Rock's perspective to say thank you to all these individuals. I hope I didn't miss anyone in the process, and to be able to answer any questions you have. We have done some things since this unfortunate event. We have installed a temporary alarm system that we did not have until we fully involve and install our SCADA system that we're going to talk about this winter. So we have started making some of those temporary measures that unfortunately we had not needed in the previous 100+ years of having this water system. So tremendous effort for everyone involved. Catastrophic failure could not have gotten worse. I don't know truly if you can get worse than losing your entire water system. We were able to restore it within 24 hours for the most part and have folks back up and running pretty quickly. And it took everyone behind me listed here on this to be able to make that happen. So be more than happy to answer any questions, and apologize for not doing this last month. It's a little fresher on everybody's mind.
Yes, Pete.
I think
Yes,
you
sir.
forgot one person, your daughter. Your daughter, that's her right there. So,
I included, yeah.
yeah, she did a great job.
Did
Thank
the
you.
Red Cross furnish any water?
So North Carolina Red Cross and Office of Emergency Management did send water on Tuesday. So it took a little bit longer. That was coming from Raleigh for that to get here. So they did supply 2 large pallets of water. I don't know the exact number within that, but it did take them a little bit of time to get here.
Did, so in the course of replenishing our tanks,
Yes, sir.
what kind of effect, if any, did that have on our reservoir?
So for, and really the timing of that could not have been better. So it did have an effect on the reservoir. Mr. Blackburn's here. We did lose several feet of our reservoir during that time. So we typically run our water plant here 6 days a week, 6.5-ish days a week for about 10 hours a day. So we don't run our water plant here 24/7. The need's not there. On our busiest day, we operate somewhere around 500,000 to 600,000 gallons of water. So we were able to really push this thing in full gear 24/7 and produce about 1.2 million gallons. So it was somewhat taxing on the reservoir. During this time, if you recall, later in the week, we had several large thunderstorms that helped replenish that. The reservoir today is at full capacity and even spilling over the spillway. So, but during that time, we were drawing down. It was funny, as Mr. Blackburn and I spoke, we kept having these large afternoon thunderstorms that kept replenishing the reservoir just as quickly as we were taking it out. But yeah, that is a great question that timing could not have been better with some of the
Just out of curiosity, what is the capacity of the reservoir?
It's around 40 million gallons, is that right? 46 million? So again, on a busy day, on a busy weekend, we're around 600,000 gallons of usage right now. So it's a pretty hefty amount from a storage standpoint, but it did take almost 7 days to replenish that water. We found, again, on the weekends, we were using about 500,000 or 600,000 gallons as we were producing about 1.2. So it did take a little bit longer for us to build that system back up.
I think during that time too, while we were trying to get the tank filled up, we come across 4 more leaks that they were working with too, which, like I said, I don't have a question, but it was big kudos to the whole staff. Like I said, we were running max staff to death with the little leaks that kept popping up around it.
Yeah, if something from a public's perspective, as you empty your water lines, bringing them back up slowly is something you absolutely have to do. Pressure issues do exist. And so the few leaks we had later that week were much better than what we'd anticipated potentially happening. We do have some water pipes like every town does. And so part of the process of producing the water the way that we were, and again, pressurizing the lines was done slower than what a lot of folks would like. Again, within 24 hours, so to speak, but done so very systematically in order to not obviously overpressurize those lines and have more leaks. So our few leaks we did have were not as many as what we were anticipating at one point. So within that.
Well, a good thing, after a minor blip, we now know that the interconnect works.
That is correct. So we do have a interconnect that was built in 2008 between the town of Boone and the town of Blowing Rock that we had never really utilized. After this episode, we did conduct a full test of the interconnect to make sure we could, if need be, trade water between the two towns or sell water or transfer water between the two towns. That test went off without any hitch. We were able to recover a great deal of data with pressures and things of that nature. We do have pumps from Boone to here because of the altitude difference. We do have gravity going the other direction. So we learned a lot during that process. We did utilize or turn on the interconnect for a brief period of time on that Monday morning. Unfortunately, we can't produce 1.2 million gallons while receiving, water from the town of Boone. So that was only on for a brief period of time. But for the first time in 14 years, we were able to really, truly understand, I guess, how the interconnect works. And that was a huge benefit as well as we went through that process.
Thanks.
Many thanks.
Thank you.
The crews did a great job. All the public works, citizens, everybody looking. All right. Got a public hearing for solar panels, 2022-12. Planning Director Kevin Rothrock. Or is it Wendy?
We need to put on it.
Mayor Sellers, Blowing Rock Council, town's commercial design standards regulate the color and style of roofing materials and regulate the size of solar panels. Council can approve any size solar panels, but the zoning administrator is limited to approvals of solar panels that are 20% of the roof size. Upon direction of council, the planning board reviewed the current ordinance and recommended an amendment that would allow the zoning administrator to review and approve all solar panels in commercial buildings, except when that building project requires a special use permit. And in such case, you would be the authority to approve those type of designs. Current ordinance text is attached for you. What was recommended by planning board was to strike the last two sentences of that paragraph. And so it would now read, solar panels shall complement the roof shape, materials, and colors, and shall be designed to limit glare and reflectivity. Solar panels that are visible from streets or adjacent properties are subject to review and approval through a zoning permit or special use permit. Loosen that up a little bit to allow our staff to approve it on commercial buildings. Also tonight, at the planning board, we had Adrian Tate with Sketchline Architecture, Landon Pennington with Collaborative Solar, and George Santucci with the town of Boone to share with us new innovations, new things that are happening in solar energy. And so they have a presentation they'd like to share with you. And then I'll come back and discuss specifics of the ordinance if you'd like. Ms. Landon Pennington.
So much. Well, thanks everybody for having us today. We'll keep our presentation short and sweet, and all we want to do is bring up a couple of things and answer any of your questions about solar. And so if I would make 4 points about solar, if I had that.
Could you state your name?
Sure. I'm Landon Pennington. I'm Collaborative Solar, and I am a teacher first and foremost. I teach at Appalachian State. I teach sustainable tech at Appalachian State, but I'm also an entrepreneur here locally. And so I'm not a Blowing Rock resident. I'm downtown Boone resident. So I'm from your sister city, and I've been here for 20 years. So, economic development is near and dear to my heart, but I'm also kind of anchored in that nonprofit institution. So education is one, is a very important part of my life and a very important part of this community, as we all know. Here today, we're talking about solar panels. So if I had a couple of points to bring up today, I'd bring up 4. And first of all, I would say that we have to kind of debunk a lot of these myths about solar panels. And the first and foremost is the aesthetic value of solar. And so solar can be somewhat aesthetically pleasing if done correct. And so, what I'm saying is that a lot of people view solar panels as not in harmony with the value of the architecture and the roof shapes that are out there today. But when done appropriately, solar panel can blend in, basically in harmony with the roof. And with innovations today, we have a black frame with a black back sheet that can look, most roofs are asphalt shingles. And so as a result, a black solar panel almost blends in from the roof. If I recall from the planning board, a number of planning board members were here to be like, how long have those solar panels been up on Sketchline Architecture 444's roof? And they were like, never seen them. We're like, 7 years. And so no one had really recognized they were there, which was an overall good thing because you want it to blend in with our space and with our town and with the style of our characteristic buildings around here. So first and foremost, I'd say the aesthetic value. Secondly, and probably most importantly, is solar can be economically beneficial without even viewing it in the ripple effect of the economies, solar can be economically beneficial to the end user, to that member, that meter owner, if you will, the consumer. And for a business, not only do they have the 30% tax credit that they're anxious about getting in the modern world, they can depreciate the asset. So, for the economic benefit of a business owner, it's really important for them. They'll see a stock market-like return for a solar panel invested in the Blue Ridge energy footprint, which serves the town of Blowing Rock. And so these guys often, these business owners, guys and girls in this case, often want to make themselves not only they want to see themselves save money, but they want to make their business more resilient. And so it's my recommendation, we empower them to do that. And thirdly, with respect to solar panels, not only the aesthetic value and the economic benefit, but solar is environmentally beneficial, and we need to be looking forward, like our water issue here. Water's always been an issue. We just take it for granted that as we open our tap, it comes to us. But our resources are extremely limited, and we need to be aware that we have a responsibility to take care of those and harness them for future generations. And solar is one of those things where if we look at our community right now, I'm not sure if most people are aware, but the energy that lights this projector that we're looking at right here is primarily made up of coal, nuke, natural gas. It's not quite thirds, but we could think about it for simplistic kind of understanding of how that projector is lit right there. About 10% of our state is renewables, but all the new generation that's going in is wind and solar in our country. And so we're transitioning away from that. there'll be a blended time. I support the blended energies. I support a blended energy grid. It's fantastic. However, solar will be, those modern innovations will occur in solar and wind, the modern installations that are going in right now. You can just look at the research and that's what's going down. And, those are the top three. I could speak about many more, but overall, I'd be happy to take any questions and not take up too much of your time today, but be happy to hear from anyone from the crowd. You want to click through the slides?
Yeah,
sure. All right, so on the aesthetic value, you can see on the left-hand side, this is actually in Tennessee, but it happens to be the most convenient roof to install. And this is a black metal roof, but you can see the black panels there. You can hardly notice them, And likewise, on the 444 office, that's probably our most recent installation to the downtown area. You'll see a similar rooftop there. Going hand in hand with speaking to the resiliency, we're going to transition. All of you want an electric car in 5 years. I assure you that. My car to fill up, George's car to fill up, is about $6. I say fill up, but to charge my battery fully, I own a couple of 3,500 Chevy pickups, and I can assure you it's not $6. I'm lucky to get a gallon for $6. So when we transition to the clean energy, we have the ability to fuel lots of things. I think my business's kind of mission, if you will, we're a for-profit company, but is to help catalyze our community in the transitioning to that clean space. Let's see what else we got up here. This is a high country business owner, Carolina Timber Works, Eric Morley, Gesh Morley. They just recently installed this pretty massive solar system. I think Mr. Yount knows it well, that the Blue Ridge Energy can be a little challenging, but even with the challenges that interconnection presents in the Blue Ridge Energy footprint, you can still come out really good economically, and you can set your business up apart to say, Mr. Morley wanted to say was, my business constructs timber frames. That is characteristic of our high country style. My business constructs timber frames purely from solar energy. In fact, he's like doubly net positive, if you will. He produces double the energy because he wanted to offset the gas that he uses as well. So he eats with a good bit of propane in this vaulted ceiling of Carolina Timber Works. And he wanted to go much farther than probably the average bear, but that's his prerogative, and that's what he chose to do. That's what you see this year. And so as we transition, if we have any questions, I'd be happy to take them. But George will transition, talk about Boone's initiatives and why. Any questions or thoughts from anybody?
Let's clear up my conflict with Blue Ridge. It wasn't a conflict. It proved how on the ball they are.
Yes.
I don't feed back into the system. Talk straight pipe. I want to talk to you sometime about battery.
Yes. So
the guy flipped the switch the wrong way. It was feeding back in Blue Ridge, and they called that quick.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how they found me that quick, dialed the phone that quick, but they sure did.
I got you.
Mr. Yount,
Dangerous. People working on power.
well, with respect to your system, we could talk about that in greater detail, but your system, what we were hoping to do with your system is find a solution for low consumers. And so the interconnection with Blue Ridge does not benefit low consumers right now. And whether or not that's fair is a question mark. But what we hope to do with Mr. Yount's system was find a solution for low consuming neighbors. And we have the ability, we shocked Blue Ridge when we installed that system, in that we're like, this technology is available to do things that you're not aware of yet. Can we install it? They're like, absolutely. And then when we installed it, it shocked them. They were like, don't do that anymore. You have to, they forced us to sign that metering agreement. And we had hoped to negotiate and say, for low consumers, please permit another pathway to benefit smaller consumers who have minimal consumption. And at the end of the day, the easy way to explain this is there is a minimum bill at Blue Ridge, and the minimum bill is $60. And so if your consumption is around $60, you can save nothing from going solar. So we'd hope to find a way around that, and it proved to be more challenging than we'd hoped for, but that's the story. That's the life of the newcomer to the block, you know.
What you're saying is, regardless, if I call it low 60s, I might pay Blue Ridge $6.
Correct. So I choose to have a net zero home in the Blue Ridge footprint, you know. I produce much more energy than I use. But you would ask me also, you would say, is that worth it? And I would say yes. Because if you look at my energy profile, I dump tons of energy on the grid at 12 o'clock and I can't use it, you know. Most of the day I can't use it. So they are paying me for that.
Sir, we'll have the public section. Yeah, in just a minute. Let them finish their presentation, okay?
But we're happy to talk about that. It's complicated, but in summary, as a solar installer, I'd say it's still probably a good value, you know, to be.
Hey, y'all. Great to be back. I know you know me wearing a very different hat. I used to be executive director of New River Conservancy and had the pleasure of coming and speaking to town council many times about restoration projects on the Middle Fork and elsewhere. And now as a fairly new municipal employee, I certainly feel your pain and applaud your staff and everybody for trying to tackle that water main break. That's a monstrous deal. And if you follow Boone's Facebook at all, you'll see that we have water leaks on a regular basis. So we certainly can we certainly feel your pain on all of that and maintaining all that infrastructure. Here in the mountains where it freezes and thaws on a regular basis, it's just a constant battle. So again, just kudos to you and your staff and for y'all for running around, getting water and everything. That's awesome. Nice job. Anyway, I am George Santucci. I am the Sustainability and Special Projects Manager for the town of Boone. And it's a fairly new position. I started January 20 of 2021, so a little over a year and a half ago. I started this role. And the reason I was hired, John Ward was our town manager at the time, was tasked with a large task, and that is Town of Boone had some really robust and aggressive climate neutrality goals. And John quickly realized that as manager, he's wearing way too many hats and trying to achieve these goals at the same time as running the town is silly. And so he needed somebody who's just tasked with achieving these goals. So I was honored that he was willing to hire me to do this position. I'm furthermore honored to tell you today that Boone right now is the only town in the state of North Carolina that can say all of the energy we consume as a municipality is from 100% renewable sources at this right now. And it's luckily due to our two utilities. So while Blue Ridge Energy and New River Light Power can both be challenging to negotiate with, and I do it regularly. They can also be, and they're a critical part of the solution. There's no way we're going to get this done without them. We need them as a critical partner. We have to work with them to achieve these goals. The two ways we've done it immediately and how we got it done so quickly is Blue Ridge Energy actually installed a 10 megawatt solar array just down the mountain here in Granite Falls, and allowed Boone to buy into that at a premium because it is a more expensive product right now. And then New River Light and Power secured a hydropower agreement to subsidize the natural gas that they currently have access to. So we were able to buy the hydropower, again, at a premium, effectively a 2 cent per kilowatt hour premium. But if you know anybody or run a business in Boone that is on New River Light and Power, you've got a letter from them saying that their rates are about to go up 20% because natural gas is going through the roof. And so we're going to start to see fossil fuels and renewables. Renewables won't be a premium anymore. They're going to be on par here pretty soon at a cost per watt production. And so to Landon's point, the transition is happening. The new Inflation Reduction Act that the federal government has just passed is only going to really foster this even further. The incentives that are built into that act, people are going to be clamoring to start installing solar on their roofs and things of that nature. So the mechanisms are in place and it's moving forward. So just super quick, I don't want to belabor this, but Boone has, this is my strategy for achieving climate neutrality in the town of Boone. There's effectively 5 steps that we can take to eliminate fossil fuels and remove greenhouse gases from our footprint. And that's change the energy. That's what we're talking about. Changing from natural gas production or coal production to renewable sources, hydro, solar, wind, any of those sources all qualify and count. Heck, even nuclear is carbon neutral, by the way. It's not, nobody likes to say that. I don't even like to sit here in a minute, but it is. Anyway, then take control of demand. That again is more in Landon's bailiwick, but that's using the energy when peak hours, using the energy when it's cheap, and trying to move consumptions when you can move consumption. So if you could run your water plant at hours of the day when the energy is cheaper, the town will save money. If that is something that could be done. So that's just one example. Reducing consumption, obviously. So energy efficiency in buildings and ways of reducing the power bill are critical components of this. Generating locally. So that's, again, here what we're talking about. So I'm pursuing projects constantly to figure out how can we get more solar here in the high country? How can we install municipal and utility scale solar, not just rooftop solar, but to increase how many megawatts we can generate right here in our backyard. It's a resiliency thing too. I mean, the interconnect with the water is the same kind of a thing. If Boone runs out of water and we're desperate and we need help from Blowing Rock, we can get that help, and then Blowing Rock same way back. So it's just a matter of having those resources in a local, right here in our backyard. And then the fifth one, I hate, and I hope it goes away because we're generating so much power, but that's buying carbon offsets. And so that's paying other people to generate the power somewhere else, not locally, and just buying that green credit. That doesn't look very good, does it? The town of Boone, in one way to enhance and provide an incentive to our citizens, decided to enroll in this federal program called SoulSmart. It's a national designation. It has a bronze, silver, gold style designation, and there are multiple communities in North Carolina that are enrolled, and it mostly affects the planning process. It would affect, obviously, Kevin's office. We have a 3-day turnaround on solar permitting. We chose to waive the fees for our solar permitting project. We did everything we can to expedite and encourage folks to install solar that were within the municipality's plan. So, and that gave us a gold level designation on the SoulSmart. Not something I'm suggesting that you need to pursue right now, but it's just something to know about that maybe in the future I might want to look into that. The nice thing about the SoulSmart program is that they have consultants that would come through and they'll look through and they'll pour through all of your planning documents, pour through your UDO, pour through all that information and give you suggestions. Well, if you tweak this a little bit, if you add this here or add that there, you can encourage it, make it more welcoming to folks to install solar. So that's what we did. I talked about it. This is just some of the examples of the language and the modifications that we made to our UDO to help encourage solar development in the town of Boone. So again, I'm happy to share that if Blowing Rock chooses to chase that down and want to make modifications. Certainly, that's a public document. Anybody could go check out that language and see what we did. A little bit more. You know, it permeates our entire UDO. It had to be effective in every aspect of our regulations. So it was a lot of work for our planners. And, I give major kudos to Jane Shook, our planning director, and Jessica Mitchell, who's our long-range planner, who really helped steward this along. Yeah, that's it. So you heard from the private sector, you heard from the public sector. I'm happy to answer any questions on the public side, and Landon can certainly help from the private side. But
George, would you be willing to share part of the conversation that you and I had the other day about your kind of back of the napkin calculations for what Boone could produce compared to what its needs are, with regard to solar?
yeah, so this is kind of hot off the presses and still in the vetting process, but worked together with Appalachian Voices and a professor from App State to do a high-level analysis of all our rooftops in Boone. We just recently flew the town, so we have really high-level, accurate aerial photography. We have accurate delineation of building footprints throughout the entire town. So he did an analysis based on all of that data, and using solar data from sources like the National Energy Laboratory. And we effectively can produce in a theoretical manner, I'll definitely stress that, but we can, right now, if we covered every rooftop with 80% solar panels, we could produce enough energy to cover all of Boone's load, both the university, the community, and the town itself.
But that was only while you have sunshine.
That is correct. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's where the batteries come in that Landon started talking about. We'll have to start exploring. But I think from a municipal point of view and trying to achieve those 2050 goals, and working with the utilities, right? To know that that's possible. I wouldn't never claim that we could get 100% of the town's needs just from solar panels on the roofs, but knowing that that is theoretically possible means that's a huge arrow in the quiver, right? That's a big tool in that toolbox. And so when we're seeking other sources that, is it realistically 30%? Is it realistically 50%? Is it realistically 70%? That's kind of that's what we're trying to niggle down to right now. Yeah.
Mr. Sullivan, point of clarification there are systems in the river grid now that don't need just sunshine. By that I mean they're fully self-supplying themselves. So with solar and batteries, they're collecting enough in the day, they're using it in the next day. And they're operating real well. So it's exciting.
And you've got some wind in Boone. I guess that's owned by App State, correct?
Correct. And they're proposing to install 5 more windmills up there at that new innovation campus that they're building. I saw that in their design. So yeah, I mean, we should not limit ourselves to any one means of production or generation. And I mean, to Landon's point, the smaller the scale, so when you get down to a residence, it's actually super easy to generate enough to power that particular, and even small businesses. Certainly this building, you could achieve that with the battery backup system that he's talking about.
Kudos to you for taking Boone as far as you're taking it.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been fun. I'm not done yet.
We keep talking about selling it back to the grid. When I worked at ASU, I was part of the team that kept up the solar system, and we used it for heat and hot water in the dorms. And it sounds like we're not saying anything about some of the larger motels, hotels taking something like this and using it just like we did at ASU for heat and hot water instead of it's all just selling it back to the grid.
And or storing it in your own batteries and consuming it locally.
Right.
A big key to achieving full climate neutrality is 100% conversion to electric. So all those heat sources, all those heating systems, all those hot water systems really need to migrate to electric systems. And if they're heat pump based and they're electric boilers and things of that nature, then that's where your solar can really kick in and feed those systems and drive those systems. And then again, if you have storage, you can run them through the night.
To follow up from that too, finding holding one of the leading national home magazines, came out from our regulated that said solar thermals. But at that time, we were still installing solar thermals here. So that puts up a big question. Same engineer wrote an article in 2013, solar thermals really, really, and we were still installing solar thermals. At that time. My point is that no one is installing solar. It's way more cost effective to do electric installs that are very versatile to charge your car, heat your phone, heat your water, various things like that. So solar thermals can improve, but it is pretty practical. It's just no one can buy it.
The efficiency of electrical systems is far beyond any mechanical system. It's really what it's coming down to. And electric cars are proving that. I mean, to Landon's point, my car's a little smaller than his. It's maybe a little more economic than his in that regard. But I drive 1,000 miles a month on average in my little car. I put $30 of electricity in that car per month to drive that 1,000 miles. So that's the efficiency and the energy savings and the cost savings that are out there when it comes to electric systems.
Council, thoughts?
Problem is that's based on the price of electricity now.
Correct. That's why you got to generate your own.
It's very true, because the old profit motive's gonna come into Blue Ridge, up goes the price of electric.
We're seeing it. No, we're seeing the fossil fuels climb. Like I said, New River Light and Power sent the town of Boone. We're a customer of New River Light and Power. I got the letter. Oh, I knew about it ahead of time, meeting with Ed Miller. But right, there's a 20% increase going on right now, and then again a 20% increase in May. So effectively a 40% increase in electric rates from New River Light and Power in that short period of time. And that's all because of natural gas prices climbing substantially. So we can either be at the whim of that commodity market, or we can have a little more control over our energy.
Well, there's a Tesla thing going at,
It's in, it's hot, it's ready.
at the drug.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, they got 20 or 23.
That's 12 cars to charge there.
Are those things adaptable to solar?
Sure, no, solar can power them, absolutely. Yeah.
That one is it?
No, it's not. It's not installed to be that way, but solar on our grid or solar generated anywhere could be part of the energy mix that's powering those cars that are being charged there. It doesn't have to be attached to that facility. So,
How are you charged? Like at Walgreens where all those are, how are you charged?
So it's one in my Tesla, pull up there.
I do need you to come up here and speak, so you can be recorded in the microphone. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned it.
So that's a supercharger. I like to relate it into how much you draw from the grid at a particular time. Think about your hot water heater. When we're looking at a home's consumption, we're baseline about 500 watts. And then we might draw 500 when you get up and take a shower and the water heater kicks on. 5,000 watts is what you might draw with that water heater. The supercharger over there at Walgreens is 250,000 watts. So it's a tremendous amount of draw from the grid. You don't use a lot of energy per se, but you're drawing a lot because your goal is like a gas station. You're ready to get out of there. So the goal of supercharger is speed. It's more gas station like. So when we talk about charging, we have to think about level 3 chargers, level 2 chargers, and level 1 chargers. The beauty of electric cars is you can charge from that outlet right there. Any old outlet will work. That one will just charge you at about 5 miles per hour. When you think about an electric stove outlet, you're thinking more along the lines of 30 miles per hour of charge, and the supercharger, 1,000 miles per hour of charge. So it's, the supercharging network, the brilliant thing about a Tesla is they develop their charging network first, and that's what you're looking at over there.
Well, how are you built?
How are you billed? It's automatic. So my Tesla account's linked up to my credit card. So you pull in there. You're basically a blended average per kilowatt hour is about 38 cents. But it gets complicated. You have to think like a business with a demand charge. So Tesla is billed with a kW charge and a kilowatt hour charge. You're billed based on that blended average, but it ends up netting out at about 38 cents per kilowatt hour when average electricity rates are 12. So it's a premium, but
Yeah, you just put it in, and
yeah.
that's Tesla. That car knows, Tesla knows where that comes.
But to fill up would cost you $12 even at those speeds. So, and you can go, my wife's car will go 330 miles, mine will go 230. So it just depends on what type of battery you have in your car. And then it's really about speed.
I was just curious how you was built.
It's modern, so you don't do anything. You put in, you plug up, and then it drafts out of your account. So it's kind of like your electricity bill with a prepayment, draft out of your account. So that's the way it works.
Let's get back to our ordinance, council.
Mayor's probably trying to get to is that please know what your planning commission recommended. I hope you would consider seriously about it.
And then secondly, the level 2 chargers, all of them in Boone are free. And the point there is we want people to adopt charging. And so they want them free for a certain amount of time to encourage adoption. And we're talking about chump change. It's not a lot of money.
We need to open our public hearing and move forward with this and address this ordinance.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, public hearing is now open. Do we have anyone in the public that would like to come up and speak on the solar panel change in the ordinance for the town of Boiling Rock? Okay. All right. Do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Okay. Now, moving right along, Council, what's your thoughts on the change in the ordinance? You make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion just to get discussion. If anybody's got anything else to say, I'll make a motion that, we approve.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion?
I just asked Kevin, are you sure you want to do this?
Okay, that answer your question? Albert, how do you vote? Kevin.
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Pete?
Yes.
Okay. Ordinance changes. Thank you, John.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
All right, moving right along. Ice House, is that the next? Yes, Ice House lease. Would you like to lead off, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Be glad to. So the town of Blowing Rock owns the historic ice house that was built around 1930. It's at 140 Maple Street. We have been in the process of leasing that building for quite some time. The current lease ends on 12/31 of 2022. We decided about a month ago that we would look to re-advertise for bids on the lease of the ice house, with the lease beginning around January the 1st of 2023. On 8/15, based on North Carolina General Statutes requirements, we did issue a public notice for accepting of bids. During that time, we did accept those until 9/2, September the 2nd, Friday, September the 2nd. I didn't add that. During that time, we did receive 2 bids, one from Studio M, the other from Take Heart. The first bid was received on August 29th. The second one was received on Thursday, 9/1. As part of the bid document, versus just accepting the low bid per se, we did put a number of criteria in there that we stressed as the bidders were to take into account in answering, starting with downtown compatibility, what type of business or what type of entity would be housed at the ice house. Looking at the history of business, what type of business, and then the history of the business we're discussing as part of the bid document. Operational hours, focusing on consistency of hours and months of operation during that process. And then the type of business with retail getting preference. And then, of course, asking during the bid process for them to include a lease term along with the lease amount. You do have in your packet the details of both of the bid documents that we did receive on the 29th of August and September the 1st, again, from Studio M and from Take Heart LLC. So I'll be glad to answer any questions. I did not include the full details here, but you do have both those documents that was included in the public packet.
Albert, thoughts?
Well, I've been searching for the year bit of this building.
1930 is what I found during the Historical Society's presentation of the red plaque. That's what I found.
Well, I couldn't find it on GIS, and I asked around and referred to the fact that Mayor chinked stone for that. So maybe you could tell us if you know.
I laid the stone.
Chinked.
See. Well,
You were,
grandfather, sure.
no, they said you. Our source said you about it.
I'll tell you what, I may be buffed and polished, but let that.
I mean, we're even.
Okay.
So I didn't add, the next step would be for discussion tonight if there is a recommendation and a vote taken tonight to move forward with. We do have a public hearing process as part of North Carolina General Statute. So we would have to advertise the intentions along with the details of that bid, have a public hearing at a regular schedule or special meeting. So tonight's discussion and any vote tonight would need to be moved towards a public hearing with a 30-day notice. Is that correct, Alan? Yeah, 30-day notice given within that.
That coincides with our next meeting.
It could. Yeah.
Well, I would just ask Alan, what alternatives do we have? Do we have yes to this bidder or yes to that bidder, or are there alternatives?
Re-advertise. I mean, if you weren't happy with the responses to the advertisement for bidders, you could re-advertise.
Be what?
If you weren't happy with the bidders or the amount of bidders, the volume of people that bid them.
Well, I thought I'd received some information that maybe the manager could deal with one of the applicants. Is that right or wrong?
So I believe what Mr. Yacht's asking is, if we were to select someone tonight, could we dictate different lease terms than what was put in the bid document?
Yes. If you believe that.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. That's legal?
You're asking if we can negotiate the terms they issue to us. Is that what you're asking?
I'm asking it hypothetically, that it would be done through the manager.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In other words, you want the lease structure to change, the requirements of the lease. Is that what you're saying now?
I think there's one sticking point of what we sent out, but it is not the entirety of what we're looking for. And is there, this would be for you, Alan, is there a way to bring that into line with something we could accept?
I think what the council needs to decide what the terms could be. And not necessarily delegate that to the manager, because once you've advertised, you're going to consider approval, and then you need to be specific with respect to what the terms are.
So from a criteria standpoint, this body has the ability to choose based on criteria that's listed here behind me. From that, discussions tonight can be towards anything, lease terms, operating hours, amounts, all that is within your rights to discuss or give recommendations towards within that. Doesn't have to necessarily be accepted tonight, but if there's things that were not in the RFQ that was submitted that would need to be discussed or recommended, we'd have to go back to one of the bidders and see if that was acceptable terms on the bidder. So if there's operating hours, like I said, if there's amounts, and again, Alan, please jump in. If there's things that you want to change from the documents that were submitted, recommendations that we'd have to get obviously approval from the bidder, whether or not that would be acceptable on their terms. 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, X amount, X of hours, that type of thing. So that's all within discussion tonight.
Well, that's basically the question I was asking. Can we do that? And obviously, it appears we can.
What are you considering, think needs to be changed in the RFQ that we sent out?
I'm not talking about the RFQ, I'm talking about with a bidder.
Oh, okay, I misunderstood. I'm sorry. Well, would you all like to move this to public hearing in 30 days to allow the public to speak?
In order to do that, don't we have to choose one of the two bidders?
We would advertise the full details of the lease terms for the public hearing.
But we don't have to choose a bidder. Is that correct?
We would for the public hearing. So we would have to state that the town of Blowing Rock intends on leasing the ice house to X bidder for X terms with X amount of lease payments to be made over those terms within that. We would have to publicly advertise those pieces to be in line with North Carolina general statutes, and then give 30-day notice for the public to then be able to speak, participate at the next meeting.
If I'm understanding this correctly, tonight what we need done is we need to recommend one of the two bidders that has come forward. If there's any stipulations or changes we would like to see done to what they offered us, and then put that up for public next month. Is that
Exactly.
correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Exactly right.
So what Marissa just said, for discussion purposes, I'll move that we accept Studio M.
Is that motion?
That was a motion.
Yes.
Are you, okay.
Well, I would second that motion for discussion.
That's what I said.
Okay, further discussion? Would you vote?
Yeah, I would like to say that, if I'm looking at the potential revenue this would bring in, it represents about 2/1,000ths of percentage of our town's revenue. So it's pretty minor. I think we asked for bids, we got bids. I think that if I'm looking at the two bids comparatively, that Take Heart probably matched up better than Studio M on a number of situations, number of categories. So I'm not quite sure why we would go with Studio M, and I think very highly of your business. But in looking at at my job as representing the best interest of the town, it looks to me like Take Heart is the better avenue.
How are we doing for that?
And I think that if we're going to uphold our end of this, we need to make a decision tonight and then move on to public hearing as soon as possible because the lease is expiring.
Yes, Pete?
As I understand it, the person that has the lease now uses it for storage. And so that doesn't say if you want to put it out there for people to use it, then it shouldn't be storage. It should be somebody that brings in people and it's open to the public.
Yeah, Take Heart's proposal stated that they were going to open it as a retail location October 1.
They have been told, or whoever has that shop, many times in the past, that she didn't follow the dictates of the lease. Am I reading that right, Shay?
The current lease does state operating days and operating hours. That is correct. I believe Monday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, 10 to 6 is what's in the current lease that we're under. Or she is under.
So that wasn't a 6-day or even a 5-day.
Current one's 4 days. The current lease that was accepted that expires 12/31 includes 4 days, Monday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 10 to 6, as being the stipulated operating hours.
The current lease has been for how many years, Shane?
On December 31st, it would be 2.
Now, Take Heart has had 2 rounds with us about this, I think. Am I correct?
Two leases?
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, this is their second.
And both times, this very subject came up twice. And I'm troubled by somebody that I can't take their word for something. And I know what David's saying, and I agree with David. But I like to deal with people talk straight. This was a big issue a couple years back. Sue Sweeting made it a big issue. And we got an answer, And I haven't seen any of that answer come to fruition. And I'm troubled by that, very much so.
Okay.
Should we,
Go ahead, Doug, I'm sorry.
should we choose Studio M? Can we ask to negotiate the price closer?
Alan can weigh in. It is within your rights tonight to pick either or neither and re-advertise. It's within your rights to pick either or and stipulate the lease terms, years, and amounts. Doesn't have to be accepted, but it is within your rights to do so.
You can change your amendment that you made, your motion that you made.
Right.
Just say,
To say that you would accept ABC Company at a certain amount for a certain term. Am I correct, Al?
The other question I would have about the other proposal would be a change of use for the building. And there was nothing put in their proposal about who would be responsible for changing the inside of the building. If they were going to be funding that, and if we were going to require the building to put back, since it is a historical building, put back to its former or its current situation when they move out at the end of their lease.
that's a good point. It was a mission on our part, I think.
Well, I think we've always had in the lease that it would be restored, no matter who had it, to its original building, no matter who has it.
Yeah.
Whenever they leave, I think that's always been in our lease, that it will be restored, correct?
Not sure to what detail, but yes, it does stipulate the upfit part, responsibility of the leasee, and then restoring that back. I'm not sure what detail, if you recall, Kevin, what that may inquire or require.
No, to the
Current, yes,
to the current
condition. Yes,
to the current condition.
4 walls and some windows.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, who made that issue motion?
But I'm willing to,
Amend your,
yes,
want to amend your motion?
I will amend it to, I think you mentioned the points that you thought should be in it.
Dollar amount?
Dollar
years,
amount, year.
1 year, 2 year, however you want to change it. That's your motion.
Okay. I would say the amount of rent, the term, and the responsibility of changing it to whatever would be needed to operate the salon.
Which I think what you need to do is put in a dollar amount.
For what you want.
A dollar amount in your motion, which you feel like that building should lease for. And the term.
The term
Correct, Al?
their term was in the proposal of 3 years.
3 years at $800 a month was
Yes.
the proposal for studio.
At Studio E.
Correct.
But we can set that to whatever we want.
That's correct.
Yes.
That's correct.
So you can,
Yeah, I
In
mean,
other words, all three.
for the sake of discussion, I'd be open to hearing what everybody thinks would be a fair rent. I mean, somebody made the comment that in terms of the overall budget, it's kind of minuscule what we're talking about here. So I'm open to hearing what you all think, what would be fair.
I think what would be fair is to, it seems to me both Take Heart and Studio M gave reasonable proposals. And I'm sure that they both based them on their pro forma of their business. And I think that it would be good for us to accept that as it was presented.
Well, I wouldn't disagree with that.
Yeah, I don't agree with that either.
No, I do agree with it.
Say it again, Albert.
It's accepting the bids as presented. Yeah, I agree with that.
So both bids or
One or the other.
one or the other? Okay, then I agree with that.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. We have a second. Any further discussion?
Well, let's let the clerk read.
Would you read the motion, please?
Let me make sure I understand this. Pete made the motion to accept Studio M. Are you saying that with the bid that they gave of $800,
3-year lease term.
you're not changing the amount? Is that correct?
I think it needs to be a figure that is acceptable to the council and is a fair rent. I mean, is that, the difference between the 800 and the 1,200 is, that's what we're talking about.
Just answered your own question.
Pardon me?
You just answered your own question.
Right. So.
Where do you go with the number?
For sake of discussion, let's say, 950.
Well, that's,
I don't think any of us up here are in a position to determine what is a fair rent.
that's where I am, David.
I don't know what the comparables would be for that, even if there are comparables. I just think that we asked for bids and we got bids, and we can either accept or reject those bids, barring anything that's just wildly unreasonable. And I don't see anything wildly unreasonable about $900 in 3 years.
Pete, do you want to amend your motion or keep it the same?
So keep it.
Okay, Pete's going to keep his motion as originally stated, which was what? Would you read it back?
$800 a month. Accept Studio M at the original bid of $800 per month. Correct?
That's what you said, right, Pete?
No, what you said.
I thought I said 900.
Okay, so he's changing it. He wants to go with 950.
As presented, that's what was presented.
Okay, now, we have a second, or who made this? Albert, you made the second. Are you amenable?
I don't think I did.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. You amenable to that?
Yes. Well, I mean, I made second, he's reverted back to his original motion.
Now, we changed his motion
No,
to a dollar amount of 950
for the 3 years.
for the 3 years.
Right.
Okay? Now,
A month,
yes,
and what was bid?
8.
8.
I'm hearing two different things.
No, you're not. Original bid was 800.
I understand.
He changed his motion to state he would like to see, he would be amenable, he made the motion at 950 an increase, and given that business 3 years to operate with a lease.
Now,
Now,
I thought I just heard agreement on what she bid.
He changed it.
He changed
he
it.
changed
Changed
it.
it to 950.
So you either need,
But we did.
you either need,
I'm just coming back to you.
He
to
just
ask me
was
to
asking
second it.
if you
you
agree
have
to
to
second that.
or not.
Yeah. Do you want to second that or not?
So he,
This is all contingent on the applicant's agreement.
That's correct. You're right.
That will come up at the
We're
public
That will
hearing
come up,
next month.
public hearing, okay?
If you disagree to the second, it dies on the floor.
That's right.
Well, to move it along, I will agree, but I'm somewhat in David's corner too. There were more moving parts to this bid process, this bid document, than the dollar amount.
Okay, we have a first, we have a second. Any further discussion? Albert, how do you vote?
Now tell me the procedure again after tonight.
Okay, we will advertise, it will be advertised for 30 days. A public hearing will be held at the next council meeting for discussion, correct, Shane?
Correct. And the motion is to accept Studio M's bid as presented, however, with an amount of $950 a month for 3 years versus $800.
And what was the other bid?
$1,256.
Okay. Dave?
No.
Melissa?
No.
Doug? Pete?
Yes.
Okay. Motion does not pass. So, how do y'all want to move forward?
I'd like to make a motion that we rebid it.
I'm sorry.
I'd like to make a motion we rebid.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to rebid. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on rebidding? Albert? David?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Pete?
Yes.
Okay. It will be rebid. And,
We will follow the same process.
same process, so this will come up again at our October meeting. And then.
Correct.
It will be heard again at our November meeting for public hearing. Okay. Now, take a break. You guys want to take a quick break?
Yes, please.
All right, we're going to recess for about 15 minutes. Thank you. And now we're gonna defer to Doug with McGill. This would be on the North Main Street sidewalk, correct, Doug?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. We've been talking about doing the North Main sidewalk for a few years. We've talked about it at retreat. What we talked about the last retreat was we would do that project with the Main Street project. That includes that we're doing the water line, we're doing portions of the sewer line, we're doing the bids to do the conduits for the underground utilities. What we're proposing is that we would add phase 1 and 2, phase 1 and 2 of that sidewalk project. It would take the sidewalk along the north side from the end of the Spafford Travel parking lot where the new sidewalk ends over to, and I'll get to that in a minute, on through past to the other end of Hill Street. So.
Yeah, that looks like that.
Coming back to the.
It's a sunny day.
So this layout is the original one that was proposed a couple of years ago, which I think was before we got into the COVID and heavier outdoor dining. So this area will be different when it actually gets done based on how things will be discussed with the property owner. And a little bit different right in here because I think we're going to have to locate a utility pole right in that area. So it's a landing spot for the conduits, if I recall correctly. So the area at El Rincon will look a little bit different than this. We'll go down. We have the sidewalk in the section in between where the new hotel is. So this will extend the sidewalk all the way down to Hill Street. And the reason phase 3 is left out is because the expectation when that property develops, the sidewalk will be taken care of as a complete project. So you have our contract to add that work. We're adding it to the Main Street project, but it's a separate contract, just like the one for the conduits.
When you say it's gonna look so different at El Rincon, what are you really gonna look at then?
What I think's been discussed is running the sidewalk straight across the front and allowing that area to be outdoor dining.
What we had talked about, okay.
Like it is,
What we want to try to do is have one driveway in where people can go in and out of the parking area. And there'll be a little spot here that you can't get to anyway. That's where we'll locate the power plant.
Or are we gonna have to narrow any where it does get so tight down there, the sidewalk?
We should be able to get the sidewalk in front of that one. You can't see on here. I assume everybody knows where the big power pole is. It's going to be in the middle. We've tried to work out with Blue Ridge is through relocating, through landing the underground utilities in this area. We've worked out ways so that that pole can be removed. And I wasn't at the meeting yesterday, but we met with Bremco, Blue Ridge Lab. We met with Blue Ridge several months ago and talked about how if you move this pole, there's a surface here that has to be handled and the surface to these structures over here. We've got a way to handle all that so that can happen and that pole can come out. So we'll have the full sidewalk all the way down through there.
Can you go back to that previous, that phase 3, you use the term expectation. Now, we're not gonna risk sidewalk that dead ends there, are we?
We would at this,
At this point, yeah.
yes.
But when he develops, we will have the say about the sidewalk. Is that correct?
Yes, the code will require, when that property is developed, for there to be a sidewalk. Now, we've approved several plans for that property. At least one of those plans had that sidewalk extending through the site instead of right along the road.
Okay.
What would you rather see?
Mr. Lovegood that owns the property, we've had meetings with them the past, not the last year, but previous. They've designed stuff through the city. Would you rather have something out in 320, out on Main Street? I mean, if you don't have an opinion now, that's fine. But
I think-
it help us as we deal with them and say, hey,
I think it depends on how the rest of the property is developed, personally. I don't think me personally, I don't think it has to be right on 321, but it has to fit with the rest of the development.
I could be open to it. Are we gonna have any, crosswalks there?
No, we're not planning on adding any.
Yeah, none are proposed at this time. That's not saying that they can't be proposed. Similar to our crosswalk at Chestnut, that wasn't there before we proposed it. We'd have to go through DOT as part of that proposal process.
The reason I mention that, you have so many people trying to cross on Sunday, trying to cross to get to the restaurants. I didn't know.
There's not a good visibility spot through here. If you were at Hill Street, you can't see around the corner very well from this, but you could from this side. Same thing happens over here. If you had one somewhere up in here, mid-look, you can see from one side, you can see from the other.
The best place is at the Blowing Rock Inn driveway. I'm not saying, I have no dog in that fight anymore, but in all honesty, in that strip, that's the best place. Yeah.
Where can you see to cross?
Because that's the best place to see both directions.
See at an intersection, not a bit loop. But you see where it is, you're here in curve, you wouldn't want to come crossing here. And this one, I think, is the same.
Yeah. You can't see the pole out of Hill Street.
So Doug, on that phase one, this doesn't have to do with a sidewalk, but come across the street. And I have been in El Racon watching that curve on the opposite side of the street, and somebody's going to get killed someday soon because cars come around and they don't see a pedestrian because of the building. And so there has to be some kind of barrier. I've mentioned that to Shane a couple times, and I think we really need to look at that. I mean, it doesn't have anything to do with the sidewalk, but
You're putting that right in.
yeah.
Just keep walking on the street.
Right.
Walking on the street.
Well, but when Main Street makes that curve, there's not a whole lot of room. And if a car's coming down towards El Racon and down Main Street, sometimes people can, be surprised by how fast and how narrow the space is for a car coming down. All I'm saying is we should look at some kind of protection for the pedestrian.
It's where the sidewalk essentially ends and it opens up into the parking lot. It's where the rounded curve.
Is it?
It's where
Is this parking lot right here?
Yes.
No.
No, that's the hotel.
Go up a little, right,
Yeah.
starting from where that red arrow is, or a bar, just around.
It's like where the
Right
flower
there.
bed is.
Right in, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
right in the sharp point of curve.
Is there sidewalk at that area and a curb?
It's marked pavement.
Stops, okay.
Yeah, it's marked pavement.
White line, it's that imaginary.
That's an area where we may want to look and see if adding curb and a sidewalk would work in that area. I don't know if it will. I mean, some of those areas won't.
There's not a lot of space. Not a lot of space.
Just black marks there.
Does rumor have it, anything about phase 3?
Still waiting the development. We're waiting the development.
Has there been discussion with the property owners already in phase 1 and 2?
But he's serious about it, right?
I made a comment to contract with them, still working on Let's notice what we found was similar to what was done at Spoke Trout. Eliminate the situation backing up the street. Great place to have out and done, already done that. Fix that up, address it, but
And that will eliminate basically 3 places to park.
One's a handicap space, so you gotta figure out how to get a handicap space with a grade to get it to the building. On the side, not in front, but
Yeah.
that'll be, if we done.
And we've talked to the property owner that bought the Hartley property too.
So we're asking tonight for approval of McGill's contract to move forward with the design and then adding that to the bid document. And then from the bid results will determine whether or not we move forward with it or what that may look like.
We have a motion.
And that's gonna be an alternate bid on,
Yes, we're gonna have a division for water, division for sewer, a division for underground utility conduits, and a division for sidewalks.
okay.
And they will each be set up as they can be taken or not taken.
Okay.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Al?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Doug? Yeah. And Pete?
Yes.
Thank you, Doug.
All right, moving right along, Oak Street project, street driveway improvements, drainage and so on. Doug, you got to begin?
I can start by, so we were unable to add this to the agenda last week in a timely fashion, so I apologize for not getting this information out. You do have it in front of you, and we can make it available for the public, and I can bring it up on the screen if need be. Dating back for about 18 months or so, we've had a couple instances of water damage along the Oak Street and Goforth area, usually after a heavy rain downpour. From that, our insurance company, the League of Municipalities, has each time accepted the claim and paid on the claim. But however, due to several of the amounts of several of the claims, they did hire an independent engineer, the league did, to look at this area. And from that report, there was recommendations made of some potential repairs that they felt like were needed. We asked McGill and Associates, our town engineer, to take a look at the recommendations along with discussing whether or not there needs to be other alternatives looked at. That's what Doug's here tonight to discuss, is what those recommendations look like. Got some pictures along with a quote that we received just yesterday.
So if you look at the photos, this shows, this is the two of the things that the insurance company recommended is replacement of this driveway. The tank standard for a driveway culvert is 18 inches. This one's a 12-inch culvert. This one's the one that's been in. This culvert, where Oak Street comes in to Goforth, is a 15-inch culvert. They recommended making that an 18-inch culvert. So these culverts would be larger. Obviously, we have to repair the concrete driveway and do the asphalt repairs. We're going to put a box on the end so that the hole doesn't get bigger, so that we can control flow. There'll be an inlet on this side, inlet on that side. This one will have an inlet up here. We're going to talk about a slot drain as well. At this point, so if I look at the next photo, this is where the water comes down. Oak Street, this is the other end of that culvert. You can't see the culvert very well, but it's set up so the water runs around the corner and back in. When that's so steep in that area, the water runs when it runs around the corner, it just shoots across the road. So we're going to have an outpour where that water can come straight down the slope and concrete flume to capture that water before it shoots across the road. And in above this, and I'll show you this in a minute, we have water that comes off of Green Hill, runs down to this gravel road into Sacrewood, and into Sacrewood, which this inlet goes to that inlet, which goes across to another inlet over here. They go, and that's Oak Street. That's the end of Oak Street right there where you see the curve. So this inlet, and the one on the other side of that gravel drive, we're proposing to put new tops on. So the The whole project would include replacing this driveway culvert and repairing the driveway back, replacing the culvert at Oak and Go Forth. We'll be replacing the tops on these three instead of having a graded top that have leaves on it that catch the leaves, and Public Works has to go out and clean it every time it rains heavy. We'll use open throat solid concrete top so that the debris can carry in and carry on through. And then we would also add slotted drain pipe along Oak Street above that driveway and another one down at the bottom in efforts to do all that's possible to capture that water. There's a section here where there's a small berm, we put a little bit larger berm. There's no yard or anything right there, so it's easy to put a little bit larger berm there. We met at the town staff and McGill met out there with Iron Mountain Construction and went over what we wanted to, all the work that wanted to be done. Confirmed that, they gave us a price of $68,331. We've reviewed the unit prices, all that seems to be reasonable for the amount of work that we're talking about doing.
And I would add for the cost factor, we did have $35,000 set aside in this year's budget. The $33,331 amount that is remaining, we proposed to you, and the information you have in front of you as part of the budget amendment, some budget savings we've had on a couple of other projects. And Ms. Norman has worked diligently in finding that those additional revenue sources.
So we don't have to bother fund balance.
Correct. We are not proposing any fund balance utilization.
Would you describe the open top just a little bit more? 'Cause that would be the safety, where it's been a bit of safety.
Let me go back to the photo. Wrong button, sorry. If you look at this, that solid top will still be a little bit lower than the road. So you're gonna have a concrete edge here. That'll be the front edge, and it'll have an opening underneath it for the water to run.
Right.
So it won't stick up above the road. I mean, there's gonna be an edge there, but if you think about it, there's an edge here now. And actually, there's a hole right up against the road. So this ditch will be about the same, and that ditch will be about the same. You'll have that concrete will sit right in here, and it'll be a little bit lower than the road. So, I mean,
This makes sense. Like, right, I was
He's talking about this on Oak Street,
talking about.
or on Sourwood. He's talking about the one on
Never
Sourwood.
mind, it's staying down there.
The one on the left,
Look like that hood down there.
concrete covered.
Yeah.
this one,
Crack.
this one is lower than it looks. It'll have an inlet on this side and an inlet on that side.
Yeah, that one sits down.
So it will still be a little bit lower than the road out here. I mean, and I said this when we stood out there, if somebody cuts close here, they might hit the end of it, but they're gonna drag their car and probably get hung up on that asphalt. If you look at that, to the asphalt right there. I don't see that.
That's called the UPS truck.
But somebody tried it. Because this road's 10 foot wide and Sourwood here's about 50.
It was the UPS truck.
Is it possible to get any money from the DOT, seeing they don't go forth road?
The proposed changes that we're making are not, they're above. The one culvert would be considered, all those which go.
Yeah, I mean, it's a culvert for Oak.
Not good.
Along with.
Okay.
Well, they're at the driveway. Can you get enough cover over the pipe to keep it from cracking?
Well, one of the things we talked about was putting the concrete thicker than that because it's going to have, it's got concrete over it. So we did talk about that because because we can't lower the culvert anymore. So to put a bigger culvert in, it's going to be taller, so it won't have as much cover.
I think I'd asked you this question, and we had talked about as far as reimbursement, applying for some of the stormwater management grants that are out there. I mean, there's so many grants out there right now for stormwater and infrastructure, about applying, for any of that.
Right. So Doug and I had talked about, I guess, probably the retreat being the time we may bring this up. We could do it sooner about essentially looking at establishing a stormwater fund that would allow us some of the, I don't know, I would say some, but a lot of the grant money is dependent on whether or not you have a stormwater fund set up, what your stormwater plan is. And so we would need to establish some of that before. Some of the grant money could be applied for, but whether or not that could be reimbursement based is unknown. But yet to be determined what that may look like if we would be able to achieve some of that. We have discussed having a public discussion with council on setting up a stormwater fund along with a formal stormwater plan, et cetera.
I think we're going to really need to get into that serious, because you look at how much stormwater damage and complaints that we have throughout the town. We're almost crazy not to have a fund set up that we can apply for grants and help get money to pay for some of this.
Well, it's, some of that setting up a stormwater fund is to charge a stormwater fee.
Right.
The state of North Carolina Division of Water Infrastructure that does water projects and sewer projects, and we've talked about funding with them before. They do projects based on your financial situation and your need. And your financial situation is very good, so you don't score very well in those categories. And that's why the town hasn't been successful at trying to get grant monies in those kind of funds. Stormwater is a little different, but it still looks at some of the same indicators. And the town doesn't score very well on those economic indicators. So those things you'll score poorly on. But if you can tailor the project and the need to what the way the project scores, because they score projects. It's not, with, we talked about the Park and Recreation Trust Fund, the PARTIF grants. They were scored and then they're politicized. So the cycle before last, Blowing Rock scored #1 and didn't get funded. So, but with Division of Water Infrastructure, everything's by score. Doesn't matter anything else. So if you don't score well, you don't get money. The good thing is this is a new program. So we don't know how many people are going to apply, how well it's going to go, how much is funded. They're funding planning grants and they're funding construction grants. And the planning is probably easier to get than construction is at this point.
I'm one of those, if you don't ask, you never know.
Mm-hmm.
But I would agree that the time has come. I would recommend that we move forward with discussions on setting up more formalized stormwater plans and essentially maybe a fund as well and what that may look like. So we can move forward with that. You're correct. There seems to be many more complaints that continue to come in based on our rainfall and some of our storms that we receive more regularly now. So there is a need that we could absolutely, I think, present as part of that process.
100-year range, we're talking about
Every 6 months.
a month, it seems like.
Well, do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to accept this proposal.
Second. Albert seconded. Any further discussion? Albert?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Pete? Yes. Okay. Thank you, Doug. All right, moving right along. Page 14. As mayor, I want to say, first off, congratulations to Mr. Shane Fox for his award that was presented to him Friday evening by Mr. Doug Matheson as Town Manager of the Year. Sure. And, we'll see what's up for next year. I want to say congratulations to App State. They had a really great game Saturday. I know that a lot of us attended App and we were very pleased to see what took place. I think they did a great job. On an unfortunate note, Maurice Ewing passed away the other day. The memorial service will be at Rumpel on Saturday, I think that's the 24th, at 4 p.m. And so that's the situation. But I would like to say on a brighter note, I had meetings with Southern Highland Attractions this week, which is Biltmore, Grandfather, Tweedsea. There's 20 different places, and they visited Blowing Rock. And they had nothing but compliments about our town, about how it looked. Some of these people are even looking for a home in Blowing Rock now. Good luck. But so kudos to our town staff and Shane and all the, I mean, our town probably looked the best this year. It's looked in many years. I think we owe all that to our town staff, the community club, the garden club, Albert for picking weeds around his yard. So thank you, Albert. So thank you.
You didn't get even.
Any comments?
Yeah, just to announce the passing of Forrest Farrell. You probably knew Forrest. Forrest for many years a Superior Court judge. I believe he was a resident judge in Catawba County. Is that right?
Yeah, he was resident Superior Court judge, whatever that district is down there.
Well, after he retired, if you come up the mountain, you can see the cell tower coming up. And the story of that cell tower is it was going to be built with this huge red light. Do you remember that, Alan?
No.
I mean, it's huge. It was going to blink, blink, blink. And here's the parkway, and you look over there and see it, the parkway wimped out, attacked for whatever reason. Because I think there's a right to build a cell tower. There's something they've got. So anyway, everybody on Green Hill was going to see it, and everybody on Gideon Ridge was going to see that big light going on. So a group of us got together, and we raised $8,000. And they didn't know who to get. So I said, I know a guy. And Forrest had retired with them, was with a law firm in Hickory. And he came up, made his little presentation, and he said, I'm not sure I can stop the cell tower, but I'll damn sure stop that red light. Well, we went back to the Caldwell County Commissioners, and all of a sudden an attorney from Atlanta called, and he said, don't you guys waste your money. It's a done deal. We've already done it. Well, Forrest went before the county commissioners at a hearing, and he started talking about the hiking up in there, all this beauty and all that, and tears came in the eyes of two commissioners. There's a cell tower there, but there's no light there to this day. We went to pay Forrest. He said, hell, I lost. I didn't do anything for you. I didn't get rid of that cell tower and wouldn't take a dime. So we gave the money to the schools. He passed away, I think, Friday. But if you were in court with Forrest, ever, very fair man.
And a good lawyer, very good lawyer.
David?
I'm sorry to hear about Maurice. I didn't know that. Maurice was a huge asset to our community, so I'm sorry to hear that. And a very noteworthy volunteer in our community. I also want to say congratulations, Shane. Well deserved. And for those that weren't there, Shane immediately deferred all of that onto his team. And that's just the kind of person he is. And so, but that team doesn't operate without a good leader, and that is definitely you. Thank you.
I'm just proud of Shane and congratulations. You make this job so much easier.
Sometimes.
Doug?
I want to, congratulate Shane. I was honored and privileged that night to be the one to do that. But we also had another Blowing Rock person too that was honored that night that could not be there. And he was the most outstanding Rural Transportation Advisory Committee member, and that was Mr. Cully Tarver. So Blowing Rock was well represented that night as far as the awards go. I'd like to wish Cully congratulations also on his book.
Steve?
A couple things. Thanks to Shane and to Matt for taking care of that water issue up on Upper Sunset, which we had looked at a number of times, and it all got fixed and looks great. The neighbors are happy because the water is now doing what it's supposed to, so thank you for that. Secondly, I had talked with Kevin and Brian about the person that has the coffee shop there at Sunset and 321. It looks like a jungle there, and you said that it was supposed to be done a week ago and it's still not done, so I'm happy to hire Kevin, Doug, or I'll have my guy go over there and pay for it and do it if it doesn't get done here in a couple of days.
Pete was that will be cut tomorrow or Thursday at the latest.
Okay, well, it'll kind of look nice and look like the Barry Buxton property which is nicely trimmed now, and thanks to Shane for doing that too. Just one other quick point. We had our TDA meeting on the 6th, covered a lot of stuff, but just a couple highlights. The TDA and Chamber are going to renew their lease for 5 years, and that there was some discussion about that, but that was approved. We did approve an executive director evaluation, which was patterned after Shane's evaluation for Tracy, and then Tracy's going to do one for Amanda. Talked about wayfinding signage, talked about the RFQ to move forward with that. And I think they're going to use the group that did the Boone signage, as I understand it.
County one.
Yeah. And so that's coming, and so that was pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Mr. Mosley?
Shane, is there ETA on?
You're saving up your wind?
Green Hill Road?
Not that I've heard. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they had a deadline of the end of November to complete that project. If you recall, back in the spring, we passed a resolution allowing that project to move forward. And I believe November something was the date with that, but I'll confirm that. I think that's correct. So they are out working this week. I've noticed they were working this week within there. Yep.
Redid this.
Yeah, concrete works and flat work that's been done.
Short, medium, beautiful concrete.
Put it back.
We redid. Your side. You did the road.
No.
Thought they moved the road about 4 feet.
Just the sidewalk and the pedestrian access. So I'll try to get an answer to you, and I can send that out to you, what the completion estimation is within that project.
Lori was just asking.
Yeah, just quickly going through Laurel Lane, the sidewalk and road work is scheduled to begin next week. Does that sound right?
Next week.
For the following week. There was a delay early on with that project. It was washed out last August. We did apply for FEMA funds. If you recall, it does take a little while to go through that process. We did get approval. The approval process through FEMA does include submitting the exact repair plans. So there was a little bit of a time frame issue there. along with supply issues, the Gabion baskets that are to be utilized were on back, or have been on back order. So the Laurel Lane sidewalk / shoulder repair should begin within the next week or week and a half. And so that project is a fairly quick project, but is needed. And I know you've all received questions and comments from folks there that it's been out of service for quite some time. So that is good news to hear. As always, ABC Store did have a flat month last month. For June, July's numbers were back up about 8% or $21,000. So we did have a little less alcohol sold in June than we had in the prior year, but July seems to be picking back up to where before. On the audit side, we had the audit TDA field work today, and that went well. The audit work for the town is ongoing. A lot of that's virtual work and submissions via scans and things of that nature. So those are my updates. I will say thank you to Doug for presenting the award on Friday night. It was a surprise. I don't do well with surprises. In the midst of thanking everyone, it is true that it does take a council, takes a team, and it takes a council that allows us to do what we do, and supportive of what we do. But truly, as I state most days when I get home, I don't really produce or do much of anything. So the staff that we have here does all the work.
We make note of that for the upcoming review.
And staff here does all the work, and I think that is the reason why I'll always say what I say when someone says something to me, is that I just try not to get in their way and referee from time to time, but ultimately they're the ones that make this thing what it is. And so from the beauty to the infrastructure and everything in between, for processing payroll and paying invoices to take care of our kids after school, those are the people that really need to be thanked. And it's a privilege and honor to be able to accept the award on Friday night. I wish I'd had just a little bit of a heads up on that to be able to think of something a little bit better to say. Thank you.
Thank goodness for Jackson, Mississippi.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going into closed session.
Doug has something.
I'm sorry, Doug.
I got something else to say. I know it's not totally operator error, but can we do anything about Verizon and all the brief cases?
I believe your state representative is working on that.
Good.
Yeah, so we have received more complaints than we could count from folks with cell phone issues. So I do believe that it has escalated itself to a state level concern as well with the area here. So
The state representative is working on that.
Thank you, Representative Pickett.
All right. We are going to be going to closed session. There should be no decision made to close session.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to propose we go into closed session to afford us attorney-client privilege per North Carolina General Statute 143-318-1183.